Alright, welcome everyone to the fourth episode of Pure Grade Puroresu. Today I'm going to be looking at Dragon Gate's Open the New Year Gate show from, multiple shows, one in Kyoto, Osaka, and Tokyo. And this was when they were doing their rookie ranking tournament. And I'm really excited to go over that. It's my first Dragon Gate review of the year, hopefully many more to come. So once again, we're going to go over a few housekeeping things to start. So, firstly, thank you for the support I've been getting. I've been getting quite a few, that's sort of quite a few is, even though that doesn't imply much, that's already, over-exaggerating. I've gotten, two, I think, comments on YouTube that have been, supportive, so I really appreciate that. My 01 and Big Japan review, the joint review, that ended up being my most popular review, which was really surprising. I thought my Wrestle Kingdom review would be the most popular because, New Japan, biggest Japanese promotion, and obviously Wrestle Kingdom, the biggest wrestling show of the year in Japan. And then my Noah review, that also got more views and ratings than the Wrestle Kingdom. And now my 01 and Big Japan review has gotten almost twice as many as the New Japan review. And I sadly I noticed that the ratings were a bit divided. There were 3 positive, 3 negative, and I wasn't let down because I had negative ratings. I was more let down because I've been encouraging people to give me feedback, because it doesn't help me if you just think to yourself that you don't like what I've said. It really helps me if you leave a comment and you at least tell me what you thought I did wrong or where I could improve. If it just came down to opinions, then obviously I understand that. And if you thought that my opinion, maybe, because I didn't like the Takahashi versus Tsukamoto match as much as you did, then I can understand just throwing a downvote. But hey, I'm a very young show. You guys got to show me support. I'll probably review some shows that you guys will end up liking, and then you'll share your feelings with me, and we'll both enjoy it. And, you just got to look forward to that. Don't burn me with your downvote so early in my show's lifespan. Come on, guys, we've got to support each other. But seriously, I'm not going to let the those few negative ratings get me down, obviously, because I'm mostly doing this review show for myself. And the few positive comments I did get, they were actually constructive criticism, offering me some ideas about what I could do. One person messaged me on Reddit where I've been promoting some of my reviews, and they suggested that I did a top matches of the month sort of thing, because that's something that's more easily accessible to I think wrestling fans in general than like a 2-hour long review of some rather obscure Japanese promotion that does death matches. So if I did a top sort of 30 matches or whatever, probably wouldn't even be that much of the month. I think that would probably also be a good way to get some views, and also that'd just be fun, because I'm really into ranking things that I enjoy. I already do that with obviously using Cage Match to allocate. No, not allocate. What's the term? Trademark Lewis not being able to think of the words when he's on mic, being able to categorize, whatever, I'll go with that, being able to categorize my ratings. So I'd really enjoy doing a sort of top matches of the month sort of thing. Someone also suggested that at the end of my reviews, I could go through each show and sort of mention which wrestlers I thought stood out the most, just so people had an idea of whose matches they should definitely check out, and also matches they should check out from wrestlers outside of this particular show. So if I thought, Kaito Ishida, for example, was really great on this one show, then I'd single him out, and then people would be like, oh, okay, maybe I should check out this match from him, and also some other matches that he's been in. Another issue that I've been very well aware of is that I'm constantly using crutch words such as and it's really difficult for me to not use them, because I'm trying to do all of my talking off the cuff, and I have a bunch of notes, and I try to refer to them, but I don't want to just read them off directly, because then it gets rid of all the energy from the podcast. And I like to think that my presentation is a bit more energetic than most wrestling podcasts out there. So it's difficult, because I'm trying to be smooth, but I also want to have actual content to talk about, and I just end up finding myself muddling over words. But anyways, there it was again. Anyways, there it is again. Anyways, look, I'm going to do it. We're just going to have to get over it, and I'm just going to do my best to consciously forget it. Guys, look. I'm just going to leave this in. You know what? Forget it. I'm just going to go on to next note in my notes. I just want to point out to people, just because I'm not throwing 4+ star ratings to every match on a show, doesn't mean that I'm not enjoying it. I was thinking that maybe people were giving me some negative ratings on my 01 and Big Japan review because I was sort of saying, oh yeah, this is a good match, but then I'm giving it 3.25 stars, and maybe that sounds a bit contradictory to some people. But my philosophy with the ratings has always been, if I give something a 4-star rating, which is essentially an 8 out of 10, then it's something that I think is like great. It's something I'll think of for like the rest of the month. And if I give something like 3 stars, then I think, it was a good match. It's, it's not something I'm going to go like hard out of my way to watch again, but it's something that I'd recommend, if if you've got the time to dedicate to it, you'd probably enjoy that match. So yeah, just because I'm not giving out, very high, like, 4.5-star ratings every show, doesn't mean you guys shouldn't still check out these shows, and especially the matches that I single out as being worth watching. I consider myself sort of a high sort of star rater. I only gave like 1 5-star match last year. Not to come off as like an elitist trying to brag about, oh yeah, I enjoy matches way better than you guys because I only rate the best matches. But yeah. So I think it just makes it more important when I finally find like a really good match and then I give it a big rating. So yeah. Another thing, because this is a Dragon Gate podcast, there's actually a new Dragon Gate centric podcast out there. It's called the Dream Key podcast. There's like 4 people who do it. They're from around America and Europe, I believe. And they call in. They went over the Dragon Gate shows from December, and they also did a bit of a preview for this rookie tournament. They did a 2-hour show for their first episode. I really enjoyed it. If you don't enjoy my review of the rookie tournament here, then maybe go check out their review, and maybe you'll find some benefits in my review as well as theirs, or maybe you'll only find benefit in their review as opposed to mine. That's fine. I'm just here to help people, find podcasts that can, help them enjoy the wrestling that they already watch. So without further ado, let's get into the review. So this was day 1 of I believe it's called the Open the New Year Gate tournament. Yeah, so this was the first show from Dragon Gate in 2019. It was from Kyoto. It was a hard camera show, and you're not really going to get anything too blow away from here. I'm feeling I'm just going to run through these matches because honestly there's nothing that deserves too much attention. I will go into the rookie tournament matches a bit more in depth than the other matches, just because that was the main focus of these shows. But this is honestly a pretty skippable show if I have to be honest. So they were doing the, what do you call it? They were pulling like straws. I can't think of the actual term. I'll just give the analogy for it. They're pulling straws to decide how the rankings for the rookie tournament are going to go. And obviously, because this is wrestling, it's predetermined. So it's not really... Well, I wonder if they... No. I was going to say, like, would they have maybe have actually added some randomness into this? But no, knowing Dragon Gate, they would have been direct with their decisions. So Kaito Ishida, he got the round 1 bye, and it was a shame because from the few matches I've seen of the Dragon Gate rookies, I really felt that Ishida was the most impressive, or at least one of the most impressive, with his really great strikes, and he just looks really comfortable running around the ring. So I was really excited to see him in a singles match here. Anyways, the first match on the card was, in fact, Ishida, as well as Mysterioso Jr. versus Mondai Ryu and Sachi Hokoboy. Is that the right... How do I pronounce this? Yeah, I think it's Sachi Hokoboy. So, Mysterioso Jr., apparently he's been wrestling for like 8 years, and I was really surprised because I figured he was like the typical case of some famous luchador from Mexico whose son has just gotten into wrestling and he's really green, because that's what I thought. I thought Mysterioso Jr. was really green, but yeah, apparently he's been wrestling for a while. He just looked quite awkward at a few moments. I can't remember any big botches, but I just remember him looking a bit awkward at times. This was basically what I've called a polite clap match, where the audience is not really paying attention, but when they see a spot and they know that the spot is intended, it's structured in a way to make them applaud, then they give a nice little quiet clap. But this really wasn't much. It was mostly for Ishida to stand out. He showed some nice kicks and general comfortable movement, as I mentioned, and he was really the only interesting wrestler out of these 4 wrestlers here. He was probably this one thing I have to say about Ishida. This was at least my first criticism I had watching these 3 shows, was that he's really over reliant on thigh slaps for kicks. And it was funny because I believe it was Lance Storm. He commented on Twitter saying, "Wow, are people really doing thigh slaps for chops now?" And because it's silly, because when you throw a chop, you're already getting that smacking impact. There's no need to add the extra sound effect of a thigh slap. And that's what Ishida's been doing for a while. Also, Mochizuki, he does that sometimes. And when I first started watching Dragon Gate, I really didn't like Mochizuki because he would do these kicks, but then he'd throw in these thigh slaps, and that just really irks me. But it turns out that he does, in fact, throw stiff kicks. And Ishida does throw stiff kicks as well. He just needs to work on not having those thigh slaps because, they just take me out of it. Anyways, 2-star match, very skippable. Next match was Eita versus Susumu, and this was interesting because obviously Eita was the, he was the big bad guy, the main sort of villain at the end of Dragon Gate 2018. Obviously there was Puck at the very end, but he wasn't around too much, and he wasn't even there at Final Gate, so, what can you do? So Eita's the big guy, and they basically try to make him look strong after that loss to what's his name, bloody Dragon Kid at Final Gate, and they're trying to, build him back up. So he had like a very short match with Susumu here. Obviously, Eita and R.E.D got the jump from the start. Susumu gained control via some stiff lariats. He always impresses me with those. It surprised me because the guy's relatively small. He's got like that sort of, wavy, long hair, that, fringe that covers his face, but then he just dishes out these brutal lariats. And he gained control with that, but then there was interference, some suitcase shots, and then Eita hit a bunch of super kicks to get the win. And apparently the super kick that Eita uses most is actually now his like finishing move. I believe it's called Imperial Uno, and it's weird because he hits like 3 of them. So it's like, is 3 super kicks Imperial Uno, or is just one of them Imperial Uno? In which case, why did the first 2 kicks not finish the match of their finishes? Yeah, anyways, not really a match you can rate. It was fun, watching Eita work over Susumu, but, not a proper match. First match of the rookie tournament, we had Dragon Dyer versus Skywalker. And I was really excited for this because Dragon Dyer is the apprentice of Dragon Kid. And obviously we all know how great Dragon Kid was, and obviously he came from Ultimo Dragon, so I was really excited for this. And Skywalker, he was the rookie who had impressed me most from Dragon Gate in terms of pure high flying. I've heard some people talk about how, at least, apparently he's frequently known to botch spots, but from the few months that I've been diligently watching Dragon Gate, like all the shows from at least, December, and I've been going back and watching shows from the start of 2018. I haven't seen any big botches from him. So yeah, I was really expecting this to be a great high flying match, and I was sadly disappointed. So at the start, Dyer he hit a dive on Skywalker as Skywalker was making his way to the ring. And from then, Dyer was in control, but Skywalker really, he started bullying Dyer with like a variety of strikes, aerial attacks, and power moves. And there was also a really great sequence where it seemed like Dyer was actually going to tap out to just like a simple Boston Crab, because I understand that Dyer is still quite new to Dragon Gate. Like he doesn't even have a cage match profile. Okay, guys, that's how new he is to the world of wrestling. So I wouldn't have been surprised if he literally just tapped out right in there to the Boston Crab, but made it to the ropes. There are a few botches in this match which were hard to ignore. There was one where Skywalker came off the ropes and had a drop kick, but he totally missed Dragon Dyer's head, and so Dragon Dyer looked really awkward. He like grabbed his head, then his stomach, trying to sell it as if, oh, you went for my head. Oh, but no, it was actually my abdomen that got hit, guys. This wasn't a botch. But I was just sitting there like, damn, that was a clear botch. There was another moment where Dragon Dyer was in the middle of the ring. Skywalker came off the ropes, and Dragon Dyer jumped up to hit a drop kick. But Skywalker, there must have been some miscommunication. They must have thought Skywalker must have been preparing for another spot, because Dragon Kid hit the drop kick, but Skywalker was way too close. He'd basically run past Dragon Dyer, and so Dragon Dyer really only hit Skywalker with like his knees, and that was another really awkward moment. And at this point, I was really prepared to say that this match was bad, because like it was really exciting at the start, but then Dyer got worked over. Skywalker was impressing relatively, but they just didn't have any very impressive chemistry. But then right at the very end, we got like some silky smooth exchanges. And that was what really renewed my faith, or at least, no, not renewed, like saved the match for me from being just totally dull. So Skywalker ended up getting a crucifix body slam for the win. I can't exactly remember this move, and even the way I've described it in my notes, I can't really like picture it in my head. But that's what I wrote down. That's what must have happened, I guess. So yeah, the last few minutes really saved this match, but it was still pretty skippable. 2.25 star. Next match was Watanabe versus Yoshioka. So we got a more traditional grappling to start off with for this rookie tournament match. Then we got like the usual hurdles and jumps, quote unquote dancing that comes out. The match then went back to grappling. I was interested when we got Watanabe finally showing off his sweet acrobatics, because he's another one like Skywalker who really impresses me with his acrobatics. Like he's always got that spot where he escapes from the corner and does those they're not like handstands. What do you call them? Like headstand flips. It's sort of the same that Park does. So that really impressed me. The match picked up as they started hitting some bigger moves, and the intensity was really ramping up. We got some trademark rookie yelling and screaming alongside the strikes. That was adorable. Then we got a nice series of like roll up pin trades with both getting some really close near falls before Yoshioka finally hit the frog splash for the win. So, decent match. There was a good pace in the second half, but the first half was a bit slow for me. I wasn't a fan of going from grappling to high flying to grappling because it felt a bit disjointed. I wish they would have just gone with one, maybe just, a bit of grappling, then the high flying. And when I say high flying, I'm also encompassing, obviously, I'm not just talking about going up to the ropes and jumping off, but, like typical lucha exchanges. That's what I encompass in high flying. So this was a better match than Dyer versus Skywalker. I gave this 2.5 stars. Then, this was disappointing. We had UT versus Minoura. And UT, he's another of the rookies who I'm a big fan of. And I was expecting this to go longer, but I believe this was like a 3 or like 4 minute match. Minoura jumped UT while UT was throwing his shirt out to the fans. On this show, for some reason, all the Dragon Gate wrestlers were coming out with t-shirts, and there was some sponsorship, obviously, and they'd all sign them, and then they were throwing them out. So while UT was doing this, Minoura jumped him. The match was pretty strike heavy. But UT eventually locked on his Rings of like Saturn move, which is apparently called Bien Love. I have no idea how to properly pronounce that. I know it's meant to be Mexican because sorry, Spanish, because bien, that means good, doesn't it? And then I have no idea what love means. Not love, but love. And he got a quick tap from that. In the post-match, UT called out Ishida, and then they sort of brawled to the back. So that was the semi-final that was going to take place on the next show. For the next match, we had Don Fuji, Gamma, and Ryo Saito versus Benkei, Big R Shimizu, and Takashi Yoshida. First of all, I just want to say, Takashi Yoshida, the old Cyberkong, I really enjoy him. I understand that apparently a lot of the current and long-term Dragon Gate fans don't like him, but, ever since I've been watching Dragon Gate consistently, which is only, I've seen like the big shows over the last few years, and it's really the end of 2018 that I've started diligently following it. I'd say that he's obviously not one of my favorites, but I enjoy him. He's just fucking weird. He's just like a big dude with a crazy beard, some eyeshadow, what do you call it, mascara, the one that goes over the eyes. Anyways, he's a bit of a big dude, just crazy. Yells a lot. He has that sort of like sharp. It's not really a palm strike. It's sort of like a knife. Like he uses the very points of his hands to like stab people in the throat. I don't know. He's just entertaining like that. So I enjoy him. Not even in a purely ironic way. I just find him genuinely entertaining. Also, he has a beastly offense. Like when you come to the trademark Dragon Gate main event in a tag match where everyone's just running in, he's great at just bulldozing people. Obviously, he didn't get that opportunity here. This was a relatively lax match. Saito got the 3-on-1 treatment. He's someone I've never been able to get into. I understand that he used to be quite a big star in Dragon Gate, and I'm going back and I'm making my way through the archives, trying to catch up on everything. But he ever since I've been watching, he's always been the one who's like sort of a joke, always worked over. So all 3 members of R.E.D worked over him for a while. Gamma looked really good. Gamma is someone who's his his appearance, I guess, sort of is off-putting to me. He looks really grimy. That's the term I like to describe someone who just looks like they really belong on the indie scene. He's really grimy, but then he has like some really great lariats and also just some general great like high-flying lucha offense. So I guess that's just what happens when you work for Dragon Gate. It's just hard to at least not be like an average wrestler at best. I mean, at worst, that is. Benkei ended up getting the win after hitting Gamma with a spear. The match was fine, but it was only the final few minutes that were interesting because you had the usual run-ins and spot exchanges, that sort of thing. Pretty skippable match again, 2.5 stars. The next match was Jason Lee and Masaki Mochizuki versus K-Ness and Kagetora. This was a very strike-heavy match with Mochizuki, Jason, and Kagetora, plus K-Ness to some extent. He had some really fun exchanges right away with Kagetora and Jason Lee. For some reason, Mochizuki, he was pissed. I'm not sure if it's just ever since he lost his title, he's just, been sort of angry at everyone, but he had a bone to pick with K-Ness for some reason. He chose to go after his mask, and it wasn't just him. At one point, Mochizuki, he has that spot where whatever team he's on, his team members will hold someone upside down, and then Mochizuki shows off his flexibility by swinging his best leg up and down over in the corner, and then he walks over to this person, just swings the heel of his boot down right on their genitals. At one point, he convinced Jason Lee to do this spot. And so, maybe there's going to be something between Jason Lee and Mochizuki? Probably not. Probably that was just a fun little moment for these Kyoto fans. There was also another spot where Mochizuki was trying to give Jason Lee pointers on how to work over Kagetora's leg, and then he was like, "No, you're not doing it properly." So he just took over and showed Jason Lee the actual example himself of how to do it. So maybe Mochizuki just flexing his veteran experience. Maybe that's all he's got right now. Kagetora got some time to shine as well. He has generally great speed, movement, and strikes. He really impressed me ever since his Final Gate match, where he was basically the star of that entire match. And ever since then, I've really seen him in a different light. I'm always excited whenever he gets in the ring. It's just running full speed, some great strikes, flying all over it. Just love the guy. There were a series of great roll-up pin exchanges between Jason Lee and Kagetora, and this is a staple of Dragon Gate. When someone rolls someone up, then they counter it and they counter it, and sometimes it's just people rolling over and over each other's shoulders into pins, and the ref has to try keep up. But that was how the match ended, because Kagetora finally got a Kagenoi flash cradle pin, and that's the exact same move they used to get the 2 pins in his Final Game match. And ever since that match, he stood out to me. I'm wondering if Dragon Gate's going to continue giving him this, sort of subtle push. Maybe we'll see him go towards the Twin Gate titles again, because he came very close. It was only Big Ben that he couldn't put away. So they gave him this little win here. Obviously, it's not too big, getting the win over Jason Lee, but I'd like to see him continue building up the the flash pins that obviously are a big threat in the Dragon Gate lore. And with BB Hulk gone for a while, and we don't know how long Yosuke Santa Maria is going to be gone, we need someone like Kagetora who's very exciting and flashy and able to step into that new spot and become like the new sort of star of Tribe Vanguard, at least in the meantime. So yeah, good match. I gave it 2 3/4 stars. Nothing you need to go out of your way to watch, but I enjoyed it just for the funny interactions between Jason Lee and Mochizuki, as well as just the general brilliance from Kagetora. The next match was Kai and Yamato versus Puck and Yasushi Kanda. So first of all, because I'm not super familiar with Dragon Gate, I haven't. You'll probably notice I haven't been giving the background to a lot of these matches with these wrestlers as I have with the other promotions that I've already reviewed. But with Park, obviously I know him mostly from his WWE work. So obviously he's recently signed with AEW, and I just wanted to sort of not really even discuss, just like throw out ideas, like what do I think is going to happen there, because he hasn't been blowing me away on these shows. Like I know that there's been a big resurgence in Western fans watching Dragon Gate, and that's mostly to do with Neville Puck returning. But for the few shows that I've seen, he hasn't really stood out too much. Like these Open the New Year Gate shows, he's usually been the one to, more likely than not, sit out on the side or sell his injuries lying down outside than likely to actually get in the ring and pull off the usual big crazy fast hard-hitting exchanges. Not to say that he's been bad, because he's a great character. I really like his heel work. I've been enjoying that. So even when he's literally just stamping someone down or just striking them, I find that compelling, just because he's got a great attitude behind his character that just carries him. But I feel like he's a bit too reliant on that. And I feel bad saying that, because he does, like, even in this match here, he does pull off some generally impressive acrobatics and athletic feats. But I guess just compared to the quality of the rest of the Dragon Gate roster, I'm just not as impressed with him. I'm not sure if he's actually going to be a long stay in Dragon Gate. He only returned in, what was it, late October or like November, I think it was, and he got the title right away. It would make sense if they gave him at least maybe one title defense before he finally lost the match, because if you give someone a title, then you immediately take the title off them. Like in this day and age, that sort of implied, like it heavily implies that person was just a transitional champ, and that doesn't really reflect well on the company or the title. So I feel like companies usually try to not do that. Like that's even with Noah in 2017 when they had Eddie Edwards. Like they wanted to make him a transitional champ just to get the title off of Nakajima and get it to Keno, and they even gave Eddie Edwards a defense against Marufuji for the sake of that. At least I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying that. Or did Marufuji get injured and that match get cancelled? No, I'm pretty sure that happened. But, so that's why I think Park's going to stay around at least for like the next 4 months, By the halfway mark of 2019, well, if he's still here, then there might be reason to think, okay, maybe he's staying around. But I honestly don't see him staying that long, because, you got to think you're a Western guy, guy from the UK who's been wrestling in the US for how many years was it? Like 4 years, and now he's back in Japan, and he's already got this other option over here to wrestle with AEW, this new brand spanking new promotion that's supposedly going to take over the US wrestling market. So I wonder what reason he has to really stay. Like people have been suggesting that the reason he actually chose to go back to Dragon Gate after getting released from his WWE contract was because he had loyalty to Dragon Gate, and that's why, he didn't just take the easy option in Japan and go right to New Japan. So, I guess it really depends on Park as a person, whether he's going to stay with Dragon Gate and allow them to tell the storyline that they want to tell with getting the title eventually off of him, because, I can't imagine they want to have the title on Park for too long. Well, maybe they do. You know what? I could just be totally talking shit. Maybe Park is going to be like a mainstay in the Dragon Gate roster for the next 2 years. I really don't see it. I'd be surprised if he's still with the company by the end of the year. But, we'll see what happens. Anyways, back to the match. Obviously, this is a R.E.D match. Now, fans, what do we think is going to start this match? Let me give you a hint. If this was a Suzuki-Gun match, how do you think this would start? Or let me give you a hint. If you're a Noah fan, how do you think a Hooligans match would start? How do you think, guys? And gals, I guess, if there's a few listening. Yeah, it was a surprise jump right at the start. It was funny because, I was rolling my eyes at this because, the heel stable gets an early jump attack. What a surprise. But there's some English speaking, Western guy in the crowd, and just as Park's like brawling with someone, he yells, "Be exciting. Be like Will Ospreay. Be exciting." And I got a great laugh out of that. He had like a few other one-liners throughout the night. He wasn't like too intrusive in like the actual matches. I know that a lot of Western fans find it really cringy when they see, English speaking, like, people from the UK or the US just throwing out lines while they're in Japan watching a match live. They find it a bit cringy, like, oh, you're making the rest of us, Americans or Westerners look bad. But this guy wasn't too bad. He was just generally pretty funny. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe I just found that funny. But yeah, I sort of echoed his sentiments. I was like, yeah, he's got a point. Come on, Park. Show off your crazy shit, like you used to do back in the day. Don't do this, sort of dull brawling stuff to start off with. That's not fun. I know you're part of R.E.D. I know you're a heel, but, you can still show off. Anyways, so we've got Kai and Yamato teaming, and spoilers for the end of this match, Kai would actually end up joining Tribe Vanguard as a temporary member. So, that's exciting. As I was mentioning earlier with Kagetora, it's because BB Hulk and Santa Maria are out for Tribe Vanguard. So, yeah, they needed Kai to take over. So, we had some good moments in this match. Kai stole Yamato's hair sweep pose, and Yamato was a bit miffed by that. There was also a funny double low blow spot between Yamato and Kanda. I really love Yamato's go to hospital counter to Kanda's John Woo setup. I feel like I've seen that in so many of their matches where these two are pitted against each other, but it's always great because you have that great timing break where Kanda does, some flurry attack and then, turns around, yells to the crowd, John Woo, runs to the corner, turns around, and then Yamato just comes in, blitzes him right in the face, totally fucks his shit up. Kai kept insisting that he and Yamato perform tag team moves, and Yamato was also a bit like unwilling because he was a bit confused, like, oh, well, we don't really team, but they ended up doing it. And I wonder if in kayfabe that was the reason that Yamato had become convinced to offer Kai a position, because he was like, wow, this guy's really taking the lead. He's willing to work alongside me to win this match. You know what? He deserves a spot in this beautiful Tribe Vanguard stable. R.E.D surprisingly didn't interfere much in this match. Obviously, there was the, underhanded, dirty jump attack at the start. But, yeah, I guess it was because all the other members were sort of probably worn down from their matches earlier in the night because, we had BNK, Shimizu, and Yoshida. They were already worn out from the match. So maybe they're like, oh, we don't really feel like running in and helping Park and Kanda out. It's only Park and Kanda after all. There was a nice series of moves from Kai at the very end. He had a variety of kicks and then the Meteor Impact for the win. And that's basically John Cena's AA, except the opponent falls in front of Kai's shoulders instead of off of one shoulder. Yeah, so another decent match. But like most matches on the show, it didn't get enough time to really pick up. But yeah, as I said, in the post-match, Yamato offered Kai to join Tribe Vanguard. He accepted. And an interesting note here is that Kai pinned Kanda. So him and Yamato can probably find some other member of Tribe Vanguard, maybe UT or Kagetora, and they could probably challenge for the Triangle Gate championships now, right? Because it would make sense to involve Kagetora there because he did so valiantly to face off against R.E.D in the Twin Gate match at Final Gate, but he came up short, but gave a great showing. And now Kai's just pinned Kanda, who's one of the Triangle Gate champs, so it would make sense. But we didn't see any official challenge post-match, but I guess there's some wiggle room here. We can excuse that because you say, oh, well, he only pinned one member, and that's different than pinning one member who's one half of a tag team as opposed to a three-person tag team. So but I would have really enjoyed seeing Yamato and Kai and maybe Kagetora go for the Triangle Gate Championships. I think this red team that's the current Triangle Gate champions. I think that's an interesting team because, what is it? It's Yoshida, Kanda, and Sakamoto. Like, that's like a super grimy team, but I feel like they're all like really solid all rounders. So, I wouldn't mind seeing more from them, but I also wouldn't mind having like just a purely flashy, like more popular members, to become champions. Yamato is awesome. Kai's pretty decent from what I've seen. I still haven't seen his great match with Miyahara from the 3rd of January for All Japan. I'm going to watch that match at some point, but yeah. So, fine match, 2 3/4 stars, could have been better. Next match, this was the match of the night. Sadly, it was still only 3 stars. I'll just get the rating out of the way. Wasn't super impressive. It was Maximum versus Natural Vibes, so Dragon Kid, Masato Yoshino, and Naruki Doi versus Genki Horiguchi, KZ, and Yashi. First thing to note, people aren't lying when they say that Susumu really does not enjoy doing the natural vibes dance. He just goes out there and everyone else is getting into it. Obviously, Horiguchi's totally into it. KZ is the one who's leading it. He looks like he's having a great time. And then there's also, who else is there? Obviously, there's Yashi. Even in the matches when he's not actually involved, he'll come out and do the dance because, it's a 4-person dance. They've all got to like form a diamond shape, which involves the 4 sides. So he comes out there. But Susumu, he just really looks like he's like, I just can't wait for this to get over. It's totally a job for him, which is a shame because I really enjoy it. Like it's sort of, goofy sort of like idol stuff where it's not really like actually cool, but the fact that people get so much enjoyment from it and that it's clear that at least most of the wrestlers doing it find it enjoyable, that's what makes it so charming. So the few notes that I have on this match, first of all, Masato Yoshino is still the quickest wrestler I have ever seen. And I feel like, hey, I'm a bit late to the party here. Like, hey guys, it's 2019. Have you heard of this guy called Masato Yoshino? Did you guys know that he's really fast in the ring and crisp? And, guys, I've only just gotten into Dragon Gate. Like, I've watched, the big shows for a while, but it's only now that I'm watching him consistently and being like, wow, Yoshino can run like crazy. And wasn't it only in 2017 or even like 2018 when he supposedly had like a really bad shoulder or back injury that was meant to like almost retire him? And then he came back and ended up winning the title in 2018, and he's still like putting on a crazy pace in the ring. It's so impressive. Honestly, the only wrestler I could really compare him to is the original Tiger Mask, Satoru Sayama. Like, it's crazy going back and watching Sayama from the 80s because he's doing stuff that's it wasn't even really his acrobatics that made Sayama so impressive. It was really just his speed, the way he could perform like 3 grapples in like a split second. That's what I see in Yoshino. It's obviously a different sort of speed because Yoshino, he's literally running, at, like off the ropes and everything. And Sayama was more to just run like around someone, not even really running. It was just a lot of limb movement. But with Yoshino, it's just, crazy pace off the ropes. He's always exciting. Even when he only gets in for like a few spots in a match, I always find him incredibly impressive. There's the flexi band spot that Natural Vibes love to always do. I don't know what it is that Horiguchi says, but he'll pause in the match, he'll say something in a sort of, musical tune and the crowd will join in. Then he'll get the flexi band, one of the other members will tie an opposing member to the ropes, and then Horiguchi runs into the crowd while still holding the flexi band. And the theme with this is always that the flexi band spot somehow gets ruined, and even though Natural Vibes are setting it up, either Horiguchi, who's the one who's actually taking the flexi band, or someone who's actually trying to hold the opposing member down back in the ring, one of them will end up accidentally getting hit by the band, and that's always funny. It sort of takes you out of the actual wrestling, but Dragon Gate, they're throwing a bit of comedy. You can't hate on that. There was a really interesting, I guess, impressive moment where 2 members of Natural Vibes, they were going for one of the tag team moves where it was one of them was like wrapping around one of the Maximum members' heads, and the idea was that they were going to hold this Maximum member in place, and then Genki Horiguchi was going to come off the ropes and hit a drop kick to hit this Maximum member right in the face. But for whatever reason, the Natural Vibes member that was meant to be holding this Maximum member, they rolled right forward, and so instead of this Maximum member's face facing Horiguchi, he'd gone all the way onto his back, and so Horiguchi came off the ropes a bit awkward, and he's like, "Oh shit, what do I do here?" And he showed a bit of impressive improvisation. He just hit an elbow drop. It was really underwhelming, and the crowd was a bit confused because it was really good improvisation, so it almost came off as if it was planned. But for smart cookies like me, I was like, I zeroed in on that, and I was like, oh no, that was a botch. That was a saved botch though, and I was like thinking, Horiguchi, you're a bloody legend, mate. When we were getting the traditional, usual Maximum moment where not moment. What's the proper term? I guess just the usual spot. The sequence where the maximum members are just going over and working over someone's arm one at a time. They wrench the arm, tag someone in, they jump off the rope and attack it, then they grab the arm, and so forth and so forth. We got another great line from the Western fan. He exclaimed, "God, they're running a train on this guy," and I think we just need to put some Western fans on mic. I know that Japanese fans prefer to have Japanese commentary, but you know what? I'm going to say, for the 1 out of 1 million people like me that enjoy random Western fans commenting live on Japanese wrestling shows, I think that's a market we need to dig into. We need to get this guy on commentary. So following on from this train, KZ had been worked over for a while, but then he eventually tagged out, and then we got the usual, Dragon Gate trademark stuff with everyone running in, hitting their spots. One thing, and just before I go into a negative, I just want to say, this was the usual stuff, lots of impressive chemistry, good spots, a lot of it really contrived, but, still fun, nice displays of speed and just, general chemistry. But one thing that annoyed me was Dragon Gate's rules. And I know this was just like basically a random house show, but it really annoyed me how at one moment there were two members, I believe it was Yashi and Horiguchi, one after the other, they were in the ring and they tried to pin one of the maximum members. And that didn't really make sense to me. Sorry, it was Yashi and KZ. They both went for pins on one of the maximum members. And it didn't really make sense because I thought even if you're going by Lucha tag rules, one of the legal man has to actually leave the ring, like their feet have to touch the outside before another wrestler can come in and claim to be the legal man. But here they just hit one move after the other and both went for pins. And obviously the idea is that you're meant to be so enveloped in the pace of the match that you're not going to notice those things. But the pace wasn't like what we were seeing wasn't so impressive that I was totally like, oh, I'm just totally what's the term? Ambivalent? Ambivalous? What's the term? What am I thinking of? Totally ignorant. I guess I'll go with ignorant. I wasn't like, oh, I'm totally ignorant of the rules of this world because this wrestling is so impressive. And that just annoyed me. And I find that's something that Dragon Gate does a lot, where they even though they have some really impressive in ring, they don't really try too hard to justify the silliness of people constantly being in the ring. Tag teams constantly running in the ring and people going for pins one after the other, even when they're not legal men. Though to be fair, even if Dragon Gate did go straight up, like, okay, we're only going to count pins from people that we know are totally the legal men, we're not going to allow any questions about it. It's just going to be, you're legal, you're getting the pin. I wonder how the ref would actually even be able to keep track of that, because, like I said, everyone's running in by the end of these, big Dragon Gate matches, so how could you possibly keep track of it? But, if you could do that, that'd be impressive. That's all I'm saying, Dragon Gate. So, yeah. After this, we got a really cool moment where KZ actually ended up getting the win over Yoshino. He blasted him with uppercuts and elbows, then he hit one final rolling uppercut for the win. And obviously that's really big. Masato Yoshino is really protected in Dragon Gate, and for KZ to get a pin over him for the first main event of 2019, that's quite big. And obviously that would actually end up being a very big part of these first three shows, a very big storyline part. So, good match, 3 stars. It was really the only match on the show that I'd say to really go out of your way to check out, and even then it wasn't super impressive. You may enjoy the rookie tournament matches as well. I thought those were alright, a bit disappointing. They'd get way better on the later shows. Day 2 of the Open the New Year Gate Tour was much better. The rookie tournament matches were better, the general tag matches were better. If you have to check out one of the house shows, it would definitely be the second day from Osaka. So we started with Hyo Watanabe, who had been eliminated from the rookie ranking tournament, versus Mysterioso Jr. This was fine, some basic high-flying exchanges, ended in a 5-minute draw. The highest I can go on this was 2 stars because Watanabe impressed me. Mysterioso Jr. wasn't as bad as he was on the first day, but again, 5-minute draw, nothing too special. 2 stars. Eita got another singles match, following from his singles victory over Susumu the day before over in, what was it, Kyoto, I want to say? Was it Kyoto? Yeah, in Kyoto. So here he went up against Ryo Saito. It was another squash match. This time he didn't even need interference. I can't remember if he actually had any interference from R.E.D. He just ended up getting the win, put Saito away rather easily. Can't really rate this. Next match was Don Fuji, Gamma, and K-Ness versus Horiguchi, Mochizuki, and Mondai Ryu. This is a pretty standard match that you expect from the sort of, C and D grade wrestlers from Dragon Gate. Obviously, I'm excluding Mochizuki from that. And when I'm saying they're C and D grade wrestlers, I'm not even talking about them being bad wrestlers. It's just, in the pecking order, they're obviously not, the top guys that you're going to go for for a big Triangle Gate match or a big Dream Gate match, So yeah, no hate towards them. Just saying they're not the most popular guys. Although Horiguchi, he's pretty popular. But anyways, so Horiguchi, he got beaten down for quite a while. He even got water in the face from Gamma. Eventually he tagged out and we started getting the usual Dragon Gate run-in spots from both teams. It's really hard to really go in depth and analyze or at least review these matches where Dragon Gate, like the tag team matches where everyone's running in performing spots, because what can I really say? Like, I could go through each individual spot and say, oh yeah, this exchange happened and this exchange happened, but you know, it's easier and it's more succinct if I just say you got, you know, great display of chemistry as usual, you know, great display of speed and power. There wasn't anything that stood out. There was a top rope choke slam from Fuji on Monday for the win, so you know, that was a standout. In the post-match, it almost seemed like they were continuing this angle for the new year with Mochizuki getting mad at the sort of veterans of Dragon Gate. Like on the first day, he went after K-Ness's mask rather unprovoked, and here in the post-match he was sort of going at it with Fuji, and I was like, oh, they're really going to do the story where like Mochizuki, even though he's the veteran, it's like he's gone like crazy ever since losing his Dreamgate title, and he's going to turn on the other veterans, you know, some sort of you know, self-hatred sort of angle. But you know, in the end, him and Fuji ended up hugging it out. So you know, I don't think that's going to lead to anything, but I'd honestly be into that sort of story. It was, if for some reason, however they got there, even if it was stupid you know, storytelling, even if it was totally like, you know, contrived storytelling and getting there, I'd really enjoy seeing a story where it's like Mochizuki going up against all of his fellow veterans like K-Ness and Fuji, because I think that would be a really interesting dynamic for a match. But you know, probably not going to get that, but I'm just saying I would enjoy it if they did it. So 2-star match, again, very skippable unless you must see the interactions between Mochizuki and Fuji. Maybe you really just want to see them hugging the post-match, you know, that's understandable. Next match was one of the rookie tournament semi-finals. This was between Shun Skywalker and I think it's Yuki Yoshioka. I think that's his first name. Either way, Skywalker versus Yoshioka. So this, as well as the next rookie tournament semi-final, were way better than the rookie tournament matches from the first day. I rated this 2 3/4 stars, and again, I feel like to a lot of people that's going to sound like I think it's bad. I don't think it was bad. I think it was good, but you know, limited, because they, you know, it's a rookie tournament match. They're not going to give it too much time. So we had some really smooth acrobatics from Skywalker. Yoshioka messed up a dive from the ropes at one point, but he actually managed to maintain, you know, what do you call it, elegance in it. He managed to hit I believe it was a shoulder barge or like a forearm. He improvised that off the moment. So, you know, that was good. It's great to see when young lions are not totally caught out when they accidentally fuck something up, or when their opponent fucks something up. You know, it's good to be able to improvise at such a young age. There was a beautiful no-hands rebound crossbody splash from Skywalker, and Yoshioka, he started hitting a series of big moves. He went for a frog splash, but Skywalker got the knees up. It really looked like Yoshioka was going to get the win at that point, but, you know, Skywalker just got the knees up, powered right out of it. There was a series of near falls exchanged between both of them. It was a very good pace at the end, very impressive chemistry. Skywalker ended up getting the pin after a ridiculous number of roll-up and cradle pins back and forth. Again, following that idea that, you know, the cradle and the roll-up pin attempt is like deadly. You know, you have to take that seriously in Dragon Gate. That's what I really appreciate about Dragon Gate. Like a lot of other promotions, not even just in Japan, but like worldwide, they try to make the cradle pin really threatening, and I feel like it used to be really threatening in like the 90s and early 2000s, and that's not based on any empirical evidence. I just have that feeling that that used to actually be a very convincing finish back then, but ever since then, no one really buys the cradle pin, and you know, I'd say at least outside of Dragon Gate, because in Dragon Gate, so many matches finish with the cradle pin, or just, you know, just with general roll-up pins. So whenever you see that, it automatically enhances a match, just because you know at any moment this cradle pin or this roll-up could end the match. So yeah, Skywalker got the win. It was a pretty fun match, 2 3/4 stars. I mostly enjoyed this just because it meant that Skywalker would end up going to the finals. I've found Yoshioka to be impressive, but I feel like his expressions sometimes make him look weaker than he's presenting himself in the ring, because he's performing some really impressive aerial moves, and obviously his power moves are really good as well. But then if I actually zero in on his face, I don't even need to zero in. You know, obviously I just look at his general expressions, and he looks really worried, as if he's almost like about to cry at times. And I guess it's just off-putting, because you see someone who's supposedly so dominant in the ring, or at least, you know, at least in these sort of matches where he gets time to shine. Obviously not so much in the tag team matches against the veterans and such, but it's just confusing because you see someone who's doing so well, but then, you know, you look at him and he looks like he's really uncomfortable, and I don't see that with the other rookies. But I guess that's the only real negative I have of Yoshioka, because otherwise he's really physically impressive. You know, he just needs to work on those expressions, and, you know, maybe he'll come a bit further. Now we come to the second semi-final for the rookie tournament. This was between Kaito Ishida and UT, and I was really excited for this because both of these guys, they're probably, I think these two guys alongside Skywalker are my three favorites of the rookies. And I really like all three of them because they both bring something different. So Skywalker's got, the high flying, Ishida's got the strikes, and UT has the grappling. So I was really excited to see a matchup between, Ishida's strikes and UT's grappling. And Ishida was in control after a quick, 50-50 exchange at the start. UT regained control and he began working over Ishida's leg, obviously because Ishida's a striker. He's a kick striker, to put it in very silly terms. He throws some stiff kicks. That's what I'm trying to say. And so UT, obviously, he's thinking, how can I make sure this guy can't do as much damage to me? Obviously, I'm gonna work over the leg. There was a really cool moment where UT was trying to stomp Ishida into the turnbuckle, and Ishida, even though he's basically being stomped right down, he's at an awful angle. He won't have any power from that moment. He's still trying to kick back at UT. Showing that fire, being like, even though I'm in a weak position, I'm not going to let you get to me, UT. Eventually, UT regained control and he applied further holds targeting the leg. And there were some really convincing early finishes with some submission holds with Ishida and the ref, where Ishida would look like, I don't know, he's just doing a really great job selling as if shit, he actually might tap out early because UT was doing a convincing job with the holds, and the ref and Ishida were they weren't really staring each other down, but the ref is right up in Ishida's face, and it just really heightens the drama because here's this authority figure. He's gonna be like, are you giving up? Are you giving up? And you're like, oh shit, maybe the ref will actually end the match early to protect Ishida. Maybe we'll do a ref stoppage angle. In the back of my mind, I knew we wouldn't really have a relatively big match such as a semi-final end that way, but just the 1% chance that would happen was what really heightened those moments for me. I was really impressed with Ishida's selling at the start because obviously even though his leg had been worked over, he was still managing to use it for some kicks, but the idea was that he was still, limping a bit as he was walking, and he'd gestured to the leg, he'd grab the thigh or the calf and show shit, I really shouldn't have thrown that kick. Now I'm really going to pay, I'm going to pay for that because now I've just weakened my already injured limb. Sadly, he really dropped the selling towards the end of the match, and from a structural standpoint, I understand why he did that because, the main impressive characteristic of Ishida is his strikes, and that mostly comes from his kicks. So it's a silly decision for him to willingly limit himself in the ring to not move as smoothly. So I understand that, but at the end of the day, I really appreciate that because I appreciate when a wrestler has to take time out of their usual routine of moves to show, to tell a story. And that would have been the story if Ishida had just continued his selling, because it was annoying because he did so well for like in the short term, he did really well, but in the long term, he just dropped. And by the end of the match, he ended up, even when he got the win, he hit a bridging suplex, and he barely showed any pain with a leg. And I was like, damn, all you had to do was just lift that leg up off the mat. God, if I can get my words up. If he just lifted his leg up off the mat in that one point in the bridge, even that would have been a nice callback, being like, oh, see that leg work that happened 10 minutes ago? I haven't forgotten it, guys. But yeah, he did gesture to the leg in the post match, but it's not the same. And I'm not going to get too down on the guy. He's only 24 or something, and he's already got obviously got crazy talent for his age. Great movement, as I've been going on about, great speed, great strikes. Looks of the rookies in Dragon Gate, he's one of the most comfortable looking, alongside maybe Skywalker, and I feel like he's got natural charisma down. With Skywalker, his appeals are sort of very verbose. He's more come on people, he's really trying hard to get the crowd into him, but I feel like Ishida just has natural connection with the crowd. So yeah, this is just his one thing. If the next 10 years he can get the selling issue solved, then I think he's just going to be a great talent. Anyways, I've already given away the finish of the match. I'll just go back into a few of the details. In reference to the previous rookie tournament semi-final between Skywalker and Yoshioka, we got another series of roll-up and cradle pin exchanges. And I really enjoyed how the cradle/roll-up pin was really built up during that Skywalker versus Yoshioka match, because then when you see it pulled off here in yet another rookie semi-final match, you have at the back of your mind oh shit, maybe they'll do dual finishes, and that could be the story leading into the final. So yeah, I bet on all of those roll-up and cradle pin exchanges. There was another really convincing submission spot where UT got an ankle lock, and again, it genuinely looked convincing as if Ishida was going to tap out right then and there. It was even more convincing, obviously, than the submission holds that we saw at the start of the match, because it's like, okay, start of the match, the match probably isn't going to go that quick, so we can probably be sure that, Ishida's not going to tap out here. But it happened immediately after all of these roll-up and cradle pin exchanges, so it really seemed like that might be the sort of rhythm they were going for. They're going for the constant 2 counts from the ref with, back and forth, guys rolling over each other trying to get the pin, and then it would make sense to just pull out a submission hold, out of thin air right at the end as a sort of surprise finish to pay off from all those cradle pins. But sadly, it wasn't the case, and I say sadly because, I thought that would have been a really cool finish. Ishida continued throwing out some kicks, and again, I've already talked about my disappointment with his lack of selling at the end, but damn it, those roundhouse kicks were still really impressive, and as I've said, he ended up hitting a suplex for the win. Let me check my notes. It was a tiger suplex for the win. Sorry, I couldn't remember that. And obviously, he didn't sell the leg in the bridge, but you know what? It was an impressive enough move. And, he did well enough throughout the match for me to be like, okay, you know what, Ishida? I'll give you this one. But you know what? You owe me a good selling performance at some point. So, yeah, good match. It was exciting all throughout, even if the selling really did annoy me. And, don't get this misconstrued. I still really enjoy Ishida. He's still he's probably maybe my first favorite of the rookies even. I actually think I prefer him to Skywalker and UT. He just has this one thing he needs to work on, and that's it. With the rookie tournament matches done on this card, we then went back to tag team matches, where we had Maximum, the team of Jason Lee and Masato Yoshino, versus the red team of Takashi Yoshida and Yasushi Kanda, 2 of the 3 red Triangle Gate champions. So, right from looking at this card, it was pretty obvious that Maximum were going to be the ones to take the fall here, and pretty obviously that meant Jason Lee, because Yoshino is not going to take 2 big falls in 2 matches, and obviously who's he going to build up here? Yoshida, Kanda? Yeah, not going to happen. So the reason I also thought this was because Kanda dropped the fall to Kai the day before, so if anyone's got a legitimate challenge for the Triangle Gate titles, it's already Kai, Yamato, and the rest of Tribe Vanguard, so it wouldn't really make sense to set up another challenger here. So I was like, you know what, Maximum, they probably have to win. I mean, lose, that is. Like with Yoshida, I also actually surprisingly really enjoy Kanda. And again, I'm going to use my favorite term to describe a wrestler who I guess just doesn't have the stereotypical, attractive, very physically impressive build. He looks really grimy, but for whatever reason, I think he's a great all-rounder. I think he's actually a better general wrestler than Yoshida, because Yoshida's more of he's sort of more of a comedy character, I guess, because he always gets big laughs, big reactions from the crowd whenever he screams and does his silly little finger point, chop thing to the throat. But Kanda, I generally think he's a great all-rounder. I've been watching some of his stuff as a rookie in Toryumon, and even then he was really impressive in general. He's obviously not like a big high flyer, but I think in general he's got some, great power moves and, impressive striking, and I think he can keep up with everyone. So, again, I'm just standing up for the subpar, less impressive, or not less impressive, God, that'd be giving myself away, the less popular members of Dragon Gate, because, I think Yoshida and Kanda, they deserve a bit more love, that's all I'm saying. So, now guys, don't be surprised, but there was actually an early jump attack from R.E.D before the bell. And they maintained control, going through their usual cheeky shenanigans. Jason finally escaped the wrath of R.E.D, and he managed to tag in Yoshino. Yoshino did his, usual run quick, do quick shit sort of stuff. It was cool. Yoshino and Jason started bringing out the slick and quick attacks, while R.E.D were basically just countering this, more like a more typical junior style with their beastly attacks. And obviously you've got that with Yoshida. Kanda isn't as much of, he's not as, I guess swole, as for the lack of a better word. He's not as swole compared to what's his blood name, Yoshida, but he's a bit of a bigger dude. He's almost got sort of a dad bod, he's obviously in relatively good shape, but he could probably be in better shape. So yeah, that was a fun dynamic. We got some great hope spots for Jason at the very end, and sadly Yoshida just ended up destroying him. I say sadly, but it was actually pretty fun, because as I said, you've got Jason Lee with the the slick quick stuff, then you've got Yoshida with just the beastly offense that just bulldozes Jason Lee, and I was really impressed that I guess surprised that I enjoyed this match as much as I did. It was better than most matches on this card. I thought this was better than any of the rookie tournament matches we've had thus far, and I think that's going to be really blasphemous to some people, but you know what, I can't help what I like. I thought this was a decent match. Both teams offered something different. I gave this 3 stars. So again, I'm not saying this is the best match ever, but it's decent. If you think you've got 10-ish minutes that you don't mind wasting, go watch this. The next match, we had another maximum match. This time we had Dragon Kid and Naruki Doi going up against Natural Vibes and KZ. Natural Vibes made up of KZ and Susumu. So, KZ pinned Yoshino the other day, and obviously Yoshino was the other big member of Maximum. So I was thinking, let's see if he can pull off another big win here, and obviously that would be against Doi. So this was a pretty good match. This was your sort of standard affair for Dragon Gate. As you go up the card, you get the more impressive wrestlers in the tag matches, and it was going to be difficult for having these wrestlers in this match. It was difficult for this to end up being bad. So just going through my general notes for this match, one thing that was really surprising was I saw Dragon Kid botch, and I understand that he's been known to botch in the past, but again, for the last year or so that I've been watching Dragon Gate, I haven't seen any noticeable botches. If you had to ask me, can you remember a time that you've been watching Dragon Gate, except for the early years of Toriyamon when he was more likely to botch, can you think of a single Dragon Kid botch? And I couldn't think of one, but this was, I guess, his first big botch of the year, and surprisingly, it was in the exact same spot where Yoshioka botched a dive earlier in the show. So Dragon Kid, I'm not sure if he was going for a Hurricane Rana. I don't think the match had been set up so that he was going for the Hurricane Rana at that moment, but he probably went for a diving drop kick, but messed it up, and the crowd audibly gasped because they were just as surprised as me. Dragon Kid, botching something, what? Anyways, so the story was that KZ was getting beaten down for quite a while. He finally tagged Susumu in, and Susumu just wreaks havoc, wreaks havoc, whatever. Susumu was awesome, that's what I'm trying to say. I feel like I've already mentioned this, but I just never expect to see as stiff lariats as I'm seeing from a guy like Susumu, because, he's got that sort of flippy sort of boy band here. He comes out, he's pretty listless in the Natural Vibes dances, that they do the ring, but then he just has some vicious lariats. So, Susumu and KZ, they worked well to beat down Kid, and it looked for a moment like Kid was actually going to eat the fall, and so I was like, that's a bit disappointing. Obviously Dragon Kid, that would still be a pretty big scalp for KZ to get. Luckily it didn't finish that way, because I wanted to see what ended up being the finish. I wanted to see KZ put Doi away and continue that sort of build up of KZ's mega push for 2019. So Doi and Kid obviously fought back. Then we got some really great Susumu and Doi strike exchanges. So Doi, he's someone who, for whatever reason, I knew that he was highly regarded. I sort of took a while to get into him because I felt like what he brought to the table, everyone else, in the Maximum team was always doing better than him. But I really appreciate him. He's got some, unique moves that I don't really see from other wrestlers in today. And again, he really impressed me here with his strikes. He was going 50-50 with Susumu, which is difficult to do because Susumu, as I've said already, ad nauseum, his lariats are stiff as fuck. So, Doi was doing well to keep up with him. Kid made up for his earlier botch with a great Hurricane Rana. Obviously, it didn't lead to the finish, but, cool little moment there. There was another series of great roll-up near falls from everyone. As I've said, staple of Dragon Gate. Someone goes for a pin. Oh, I'm just going to roll you over. I'm going for a pin. Oh, well, I'm going to roll you back. It just goes like that. And again, I love this because there's always the threat of a roll-up pin just ending it, It's almost like Dragon Gate's, how their philosophy is, the junior, not their philosophy, their style is the junior style. And so it's always, building up upon the high flying lucha style. And then with the roll up pin, it's sort of like it builds on that where it's like, it's a move that can come out of anywhere. You don't need power and strength to put a wrestler down. You just have to be smarter and quicker than them. And that's really what the cradle pin or the various roll up pins really build off of. So, it fits perfectly into Dragon Gate's, I guess, style / philosophy. So, it's always great to see that. And again, I feel like I'm stupid because I'm going on and on about how great roll up pins and cradles are, but you know what? They just fit perfectly into the style. What can I say? KZ hit a sliding uppercut and almost put Doi away, and that was when they were really teasing, KZ getting one over on Doi, because that was exactly how he put Yoshino away the other day, and obviously KZ had been building up that sliding uppercut all throughout 2018. There was another series of strikes and another sliding uppercut, and he eventually ended up getting the one over Doi. So that's his second big scalp in 2 days. Only a day apart, he's taken out both members of Speed Muscle. So yeah, good match, great pace at the end. I always love seeing KZ hit all those forearms, elbows, and uppercuts. I think he's probably... Well, I know he's using, thigh slaps or, chest slaps to get those impact sounds, but, not all of them. He's not doing that on all of them, and he just gets great impact on them, and, the person he's with, they usually always sell them really well, and KZ just looks really dominant, so, it's great to see him continuing to look so strong at the start of 2019. In the post-match, KZ talked about how he was stoked that he had put away another member of Doyoshi, Speed Muscle, and he said that, it really was KZ time. And, come to think of it, I don't think in these first 3 shows, if we actually have had a single moment where KZ has gone to the top rope and been like, it's KZ time, only to get interrupted by one of the members of the opposing team cutting him down. Because that's usually what would happen. I'd watch, he goes up to the top rope, says that, and the crowd joins in, and then they all get deflated, and they go, it's KZ time, as they see he's been cut off. So I wonder if that's also Dragon Gate trying to position KZ to not be, a joke in the promotion. Obviously, he was never like a serious joke while that KZ time interruption moment was happening, but that's just like another little detail where it's like, oh, they're actually going to take KZ seriously. They're not going to treat him as a total joke. Like, he's still, like, don't get it wrong, he's still got some entertaining comedy spots where he was made to look a bit silly, but they haven't had him look really weak. And obviously, look how strong they are with how strong they've made him with getting wins over both Yoshino and Doi. And that wouldn't be the end of it, as we'll find out when I get to the Korakuen Hall review. Another interesting thing was that Dragon Kid, he, in the post-match, went on mic and he berated Maximum because he pointed out how Yoshino had taken the fall on the first show of the night, of the year, and then Doi had also taken the fall here. And Kaito Ishida came out and he sort of talked Dragon Kid down, so to speak. He was like, oh, hey, come on, you got to be more lenient with us. And Dragon Kid ended up, being like, okay, I take it back. And this isn't just like a throwaway sort of, cute little thing that Dragon Gate was doing at the end of the show, because they also followed this up on the Korakuen Hall show. And obviously I'll get into that in more detail as it comes. But I really think there's a storyline here, as I shall analyze eventually. So look forward to that. For the main event, we had R.E.D versus Tribe Vanguard. So the R.E.D team was Ben-K, Big R Shimizu, and Puck. And the Tribe Vanguard team was Kagetora, Kai, and Yamato. So yeah, guys, again, don't be surprised. There was an early jump from R.E.D. I'm in shock. Like, honestly, I don't think even Suzuki-gun or like Bullet Club were as bad in their heyday as, having multiple early jump attacks on a show. Actually, no, I take that back. Suzuki-gun's probably worse. And at least R.E.D has way more, impressive, entertaining members. So you know what? I give R.E.D a pass. Hey, R.E.D, you're okay by me. At least this once. So, there's a bit of history here with Kagetora going up against Big Ben. And obviously, they were the one team that he couldn't beat in the final gate match. He had pinned the 2 other teams in the match, and then he came up against Big Ben, and they were able to put him away rather easily. So, bit of history here to build off of. So, I was really looking forward to this match because it contains some of my favorite wrestlers, You got Yamato, you've got Ben-K, Shimizu, and you got some really solid hands in Kagetora, Park, and Kai. So I was like, you know what? This is probably going to be good. And obviously it ended up being match of the night. I gave this 3.25 stars. I wanted to go 3.5 stars, but you know what? I just couldn't do it. There was a really good moment earlier in the match where you had Yamato and Ben-K standing off, sort of exchanging strikes, and also just generally staring each other down, being like, nah, I'm tougher than you. And, the other guy being like, nah, I'm tougher than you, obviously sounds silly when I'm putting on, the sort of comedic tone with it, but, you get into it in the moment. And it was funny because Kagetora actually ran in during that exchange, and he sort of, caused all hell, but sadly he was then taken out by R.E.D, typical R.E.D sort of brawling stuff. I don't mind R.E.D. Like, I think they're fun at times. Sometimes they rely, like, obviously the gimmick is they're heels, they're gonna brawl, but sometimes it's like, dude, you guys just gotta let the match air out, Like, I don't mind the run-ins, the high pace octane run-ins, like at the very end of the match, but when they're literally just taking wrestlers out of the match to brawl with them on the outside, it's a bit deflating. Shimizu and Ben-K, I always enjoyed them even when they were baby faces. Now that they're heels, they've got a different dynamic. It's still really fun. I think they both work really well as heels. Shimizu, especially with his new get-up with the blonde hair or slicked back and the ridiculous, almost like clownish red tights to me, I think he works great as a heel. And Ben-K's got some great facial expressions to play the heel as well. Although I really thought that he did probably even better as a babyface because he's just got, great, he's great at showing his charisma, and passion, just like in that Mochizuki title match from early in 2018. But yeah, even though they're heels, the crowd pop big for all of their signature spots, So, Shimizu's got his long extended run splash, and Ben-K's got like his spear, even the double spear that he pulls out, and the crowd always pops for it. So I guess that's just the side issue when you try to make a pure heel stable, because you end up including all the cool members of it. You can try dumb it down with, your Kandas, your Yoshidas, and your Sakamotos, the guys who, even though I think they're, at least, good or average, they're obviously not as impressive in a rule of cool style as Ben-K and Shimizu. But, it's just the issue because you try to make a heel stable. You've got too many cool guys that are getting over his faces. That works for us Western fans, I guess, because we don't really mind cheering for heels. Like I don't think there's too many fans of Red, but obviously Shimizu and Ben-K have a lot of fans. But with the Japanese fans, it just creates a weird dynamic because they're meant to be these dastardly heels, but then they've got so many cool members in their team. It's annoying. Obviously, that's not like a big criticism because even on TV shows, you end up liking the the villains to some extent. So not a big criticism. Just thought I'd point that out. I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe Shimizu and Ben-K shouldn't have gone full heel by joining Red. Maybe they could just be the sort of the edgy anti-hero faces. Sort of like the like, for lack of a better example, like the Undertaker. Like he maintained the cool Undertaker dead man sort of gimmick, but it's not like he came out smiling and everything and appealing to the crowd. He kept that that cool characteristic that actually made him interesting, but they just didn't need to go full heel with him because he's cool. You want to cheer the cool guys. Anyways, back to the actual match. Kagetora obviously got some more great spots to show off his speed, movement, strikes, all the stuff I've gone on about already. Kai and Yamato, they finally managed to return to the ring after lying down on the outside for ages while Kagetora was getting worked over. Kai got to show off his usual super kicks and enzuigiris, and Yamato obviously impressed with all of his stiff strikes as well as the go-to hospital. We got another great forearm exchange between Ben-K and Yamato, and then some really big lariat exchanges between Shimizu and Kai. Park was really, really enjoying spending his time on the outside doing nothing. And again, I don't want to be too down on him, but I feel like he really needs to stand out at this moment in time when there's doubts over his future with the Dragon Gate. It's like, oh, did you just come here for a payday, or are you really loyal to the company? You've just signed with this other company over in the West, so are you really thinking of Dragon Gate? And on these shows, he wasn't being super impressive. So it's like, what's the deal here, Park? Because as I said, he was mostly on the outside here, just allowing Ben-K and Shimizu to get all the impressive moments. And like I said, I like Park. I think when he's trying, he is outstanding. But he just wasn't doing anything too impressive here. He even went up to the top rope and he only hit a big moonsault. And, obviously that ended up getting, he went for a pin and it ended up getting broken up. So it's not like I'm not sure if it was just the general match structure, like when, I'm not sure how Dragon Gate plans their matches, like if they have, match bookers or whatever, but for whatever reason, he just didn't get enough spots to really show off. He was too busy playing the heel and, I guess lying down on the outside. So after Puck failed in his follow-up pin following the moonsault, the rest of the wrestlers were like, okay, we're going to go, trademark Dragon Gate fashion, run in, hit your big spots, hit your sequences, get it all out with crazy chemistry. And there's one moment which I actually thought was, just something I could brush away, but actually ended up being a very vital point for the next show, which is in the Korakuen Hall show on the 16th. So obviously, because this, Dragon Gate tag team match is very hectic, a lot of guys running around, it's a staple of Dragon Gate to have tag team members and stable members accidentally hit their own members. It's funny because in like WWE, at least in the early 2000s, if a tag team member hit their their own tag team member or another stable member, that was like the end of it. It was like, even though it was clearly accidental, like the guy could just go home and watch the Raw or SmackDown show on replay and see, oh yeah, he wasn't actually trying to hurt me, but that, back in those days, that would just end, friendships right then and there. And it was always really stupid. Obviously I was like, oh, this is really dramatic as a kid, but looking back in retrospective, it's like, yeah, that was stupid. So anyways, after giving my long-winded WWE example, what happened in this match was that Shimizu accidentally hit Ben-K with a big lariat. The idea was that Ben-K was going to hold, I believe it was Yamato in place, and Shimizu is going to come off the ropes, then hit Yamato with a big lariat, and that's going to be even more impactful because you got Ben-K holding him behind, so it's going to be like crush between Shimizu's lariat and Ben-K's, just massive body. But yeah, Yamato got out of the way, Ben-K took the entire hit, and then Yamato put Ben-K away with a further Galeria, whatever he calls that move. He hit that, and then Ben-K was out. And I didn't think much of it, but look, I don't think I can give this away yet. Just listen to the Korakuen review. I'll explain it. I go into detail. I promise. Obviously, if you've already watched these 3 shows, then, or at least the Korakuen show, then you know exactly what I'm getting at. But I guess for those who, for whatever reason, listen to reviews of shows from promotions that they don't actually watch, maybe there's a market for that. I guess if you're trying to figure out, oh, should I watch this? Should I not? Then, yeah, hey, you're my target audience here. You're the reason why I'm trying to keep this a secret, until I get to really like the most pivotal point in this storyline. Then I can discuss everything. So anyways, as I said, this was match of the night. I gave it 3.25 stars to about 3.5 stars. Couldn't really decide between those two, so I was just like, I'm just going to go right in the middle. Somewhere between 3.25, somewhere between 3.5. And yeah, this was actually another instance where a Red champion, by the way, I've been calling them Red. I know that they're actually R.E.D, but you see it on paper, R.E.D, just play, you say it as Red. What can I say? I'm a flawed human being. Anyways, yet another Red/R.E.D champion was pinned by Tribe Vanguard. Obviously, this time we had Yamato putting away Ben-K. So, we already had them put away, who was it? Kai. He put away Kanda for the Triangle Gate, potential Triangle Gate challenge there. And then here's a potential Twin Gate challenge. So that's pretty cool for Tribe Vanguard. Only real criticism of this match was, as I've already mentioned earlier, that Park wasn't really featured too heavily on it. And that's fine by me. I actually prefer Ben-K and Shimizu to Park. So it was great just seeing Ben-K run around the ring. So that was the second day of the Open the New Year Gate Tour. Much better than the first day. Gave it a 6 out of 10. There were quite a few matches which I would say, they're quite good. If you're already a Dragon Gate fan, then you'll probably end up enjoying this. If you're like a first-time fan, this isn't the show I would really recommend watching. Obviously, the show I'd recommend watching if you are just getting introduced to Dragon Gate, that would be the fourth day, which was the Korakuen Hall show. And I'll jump into that. I just want to go over the third day of the tour, which was in, I believe it's pronounced Mie. It was in Mie, and this didn't make tape, but there were just a few interesting matchups, so I just thought I'd go over those first. So the first interesting matchup on this show was a match between Hyo Watanabe and Kota Minoura to decide who was going to be ranked 5th and 6th place respectively in the rookie ranking tournament. Dragon Dyer was also meant to be in this sort of three-way decision match. It was going to be, probably Dragon Dyer versus Minoura and then Dragon Dyer versus Watanabe, sort of a round robin. But apparently Dragon Dyer actually came down with influenza, so he couldn't fight, and he just took the 7th place, consolation, I guess. Watanabe apparently ended up beating Minoura with a move called the Saber, or maybe if it's meant to be Spanish, like Sabra, not exactly sure. And so Watanabe is 5th place, Minoura 6th, and Dragon Dyer 7th. The only other match on the show that I thought was worth just picking out and talking about was Yamato, Kagetora, and UT versus Masaki Mochizuki, Kaito Ishida, and Kai. And obviously, if you just listen to my review of the first two shows, you'll be a bit confused because why is Yamato, Kagetora, and UT from Tribe Vanguard, why are they facing off with Kai? Like, Kai just joined their team only a few days ago, now they're facing off with him. And I have no idea why this would have been booked. It's like, okay, yeah, it's not going to make tape, but, the people at these shows, they're still going to be, probably following along with the stories, and they're going to be reading online like, oh, Kai has joined, and then they're going to go to the show in Mia, and they're going to see Kai facing off against his, supposed new stable. So, yeah, that's a bit weird. I can only imagine maybe it was just to do with numbers, like they were like, oh, well, we've got this many people here on the card, and, maybe somehow Dragon Dyer's non-showing just really affected it, where that just like totally messed up numbers. I can't really see that, like, just off paper, I can't really imagine how Dragon Dyer not being there would somehow impact Kai having to face off against Tribe Vanguard. But yeah, that was just a little thing. Obviously, I don't think there's anything to read into there, but just a weird little thing. So finally, we come to what I consider a genuinely very good show. This was obviously of the 3 Open the New Year Gate shows, this is the one that you should go out of your way to watch. There were, I'd say the majority of these matches were good, and even the matches that weren't really good, they were at least enjoyable to some extent. So yeah, let's just get started. First of all, quick note, at the start of the match, since this was their first Korakuen Hall show, and I noticed this with all the other Puroresu promotions, they always like to have all the wrestlers come out in tracksuits, and they give like a very formal welcome to the fans. Say, "Oh, we're great. We're very glad to have you here. We're glad you're going to come forward with this new year with us, and we really hope you look forward to all of our future shows." And they had this, but here they actually had KZ be the one to give like the, I guess you'd call it like the formal address to the fans, where he was the one that went on mic and said, everyone, thanks for coming. We really hope you have a great, blah, 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 all that stuff I just went over. So that's interesting. So it's not only that KZ was picking up wins over big stars, he's also, Dragon Gate's also positioning him as, sort of an authority figure. Not to say he's like, going to have the same pull as like a Mochizuki or a Yoshino, but, they are obviously positioning him as someone that should be recognized as the face of their company, at least for 2019 going forward. Anyways, let's get into the matches. The first match was very skippable. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a very good show, but, the first match was very skippable. It was Saito, Don Fuji, Stalker Ichikawa, and Sachi Boy, as well as Super Shisha versus Gamma, K-Ness, Mysterioso Jr., Yashi, and Mondai Ryu. So, the only few things I've noted down that were of interest. Hiroshi Yamato, he came out and he had a big entrance where he was in sort of like a robe, and he got to do not even a lip sync, like a full on just, mic in hand, singing his heart out as he did his entrance. I didn't actually recognize him, and I should, because I've seen him on so many shows lately, Noah and 01. So in the actual match, the story was basically about, Stalker Ichikawa, beloved Ichikawa, just getting destroyed. He insisted on starting, and I can't remember who he faced off with, but pretty much everyone got a chance. Everyone on the opposing team got a chance to put him down, and obviously his team was always rushing in to help break up the falls. So yeah, some pretty basic exchanges with a lot of comedy. Super Shisha ended up getting the win via a sunset flip powerbomb. I can't really give this a rating. Next match was UT versus Yoshioka, and this was for the third place ranking in the rookie ranking tournament. So there was a really intense face-off, and obviously you've got UT, you've got Yoshioka. What do you expect? This is going to be pretty decent at worst, and this ended up being, up until this point, my favorite rookie ranking tournament match. I ended up giving this 3 stars. We had some really decent strikes. Yoshioka controlled early, but then UT started leading the match. He locked on the Viernes lock, which I've described as sort of like a Rings of Saturn. I believe it's at least on like the wikis, like the random fan-made wikis, it's referred to as an over-the-shoulder or an over-the-arm shoulder breaker. But if you know what the Rings of Saturn lock looks like, that's basically what this is. That's what the Viernes looks like to me. Yoshioka fought back, but obviously he was looking quite weakened. He was doing a really good job selling, at least in real time. I thought he could have sold the actual limb, the actual arm or shoulder area a bit better, but that's neither here nor there. He still gave a pretty good selling performance. There were some really impressive slick transitions into holds from UT. He really is like a great grappler, and so I always love when someone, like even with Zack Sabre, even the issues I have with him, I think he's sort of like and I'm not going to go into that anyways, but even with Zack Sabre, I love when he can just pull a hold out of anywhere, and that's what I got with UT. But compared to like Zack Sabre, I feel just UT does it perhaps a bit more smoothly, and it also just feels more genuine. Like he really looks like he's focusing, like, oh, here's this part of the body, I'm going to focus on this, as opposed to Zack Sabre. I don't want to make this a Zack Sabre hate in order to give love to UT, but I don't know, something about the way UT grapples, it just I don't know, it just comes off as more realistic to me. So yeah, UT was in control with all of these holds and his general grappling working over Yoshioka. Yoshioka showed off some big power moves, and that was how he was able to regain some control in the match. There was a second, much more convincing Viernes sequence from UT, and again, I found this pretty convincing. It was more so convincing this time round, obviously because at the start I'm like, okay, yeah, match probably isn't going to end this soon. But with that second one, I was like, oh well, UT's been working over the arm and shoulder, and even if Yoshioka hadn't been selling it too well, he'd still been referencing it. So hey, there was a convincing finish there. So yeah, they got me on that. They made me bite on that fall. There was a really crazy, tricky back and forth series of roll-up pins from Yoshioka and UT, and sadly Yoshioka ended up getting the win. I really thought that UT deserved it, even though Yoshioka, his selling, real-time selling was good, long-term selling a bit but I really thought UT deserved the win. His grappling is really impressive. He carries himself very well, and yeah, like I said, this was the best rookie match thus far, although that would soon be surpassed, and by quite a bit, I'd say. Looking over my notes, I realized that I just gave the incorrect match listing for the first match. I accidentally said that Don Fuji was involved in this, and I forgot to mention that Hiroshi Yamato was in fact involved in this. And obviously, just gonna make a quick correction there. Because we're leading into the next match where Don Fuji appeared. So this was Don Fuji, Kota Minoura, and Hyo Watanabe versus the R.E.D team. I think I'm just going to try call them R.E.D from now on. I'm going to err on the side of safety. That's what they say out there. It's probably R.E.D as opposed to R.E.D. I'll trust the commentators. Anyways, they're against the R.E.D team of Eita, Kanda, and Yoshida. And I was thinking to myself, hey, we've got 2/3 of the Triangle Gate champs here. It would be pretty impressive if Fuji and the rookies could pin them, and obviously that didn't happen. Watanabe actually got an early attack on R.E.D, which is surprising because you guys know, you've been listening to this review, you know to expect from an R.E.D match an early jump from R.E.D, but Watanabe jumped them, so that was pretty interesting. Speaking of which, I really wish Watanabe made it further in the rookie tournament. I think it's Ishida, Skywalker, UT, and then Watanabe. Watanabe is really he's really close to breaking into my top 3 for the Dragon Gate rookies. And I thought he looked really good in his first match, but it would have been nicer if he'd gone further so I could see some more matches, or at least that we could have seen his match from the third day of the tournament where he had that the match that didn't make tape versus, I believe it was Kota Minoura, because he won that, so I can imagine he would have looked pretty good in that. Anyways, this match. So the story was the rookies getting beat down and Fuji at the end coming to help them, showing his veteran experience but lacking that youthful energy in order to really make a big difference. So Yoshida bullied Minoura quite a bit, then Watanabe got bullied by everyone. There were some really great scary bumps from Watanabe. That's what I really love about a wrestler. It's not just that you can pull off cool moves, it's that you really add to the offense of the other person. So Watanabe was taking, some great, almost like Naito-esque or Ibushi-esque, like crazy scary bumps. It was really fun watching Don Fuji dish out all that damage at the very end. You can tell that his movement's a bit shot, but he's got that sort of like angry old man style where he's like, oh, okay, you guys, you R.E.D members, you may be, badasses, but you know what, I can still give you guys a thing or two. I can still give you guys a good, stiff smack. It sounded really lame, but you know what I mean, because he's got these rookies beside him, and they're full of energy, but they don't have the experience. And Fuji has the experience, but he doesn't have the energy. And so Eite ended up sadly getting the win with a series of super kicks. Again, the Imperial Uno. Still don't know if the Imperial Uno is multiple kicks or if it's just one kick. I think it's just a particular kick. I'm not exactly sure on the style of it. But yeah, so they got the win. Yoshida's still a very fun beast in this. The rookies are fast. Fuji showed fun determination, and Eita is still getting some pretty cool individual spots, still being kept pretty strong. Fine match, 2.5 stars. The next match, this actually ended up being my match of the night. And I feel like I'm going to have to use the term blasphemous for the second time this podcast, because people are going to be like, what, the random like tag match in the middle of the show? But yeah, honestly, this Maximum versus R.E.D tag match before the break, this ended up being my match of the night. So we went back to the usual R.E.D gimmick of drumroll, the early jump. After that, we got a nice showing from all of the wrestlers running in. There was a great moment where Doi went really hard, stomping on Shimizu's head in the corner, and Yoshino joined in, but Doi just like stood there for a really awkwardly long time, just driving his boot into Shimizu's face. From then, both teams took turns just ganging up on each other. The story became for a while Dragon Kid just getting worked over, and then now guys, this was what I was building up to earlier at the end of my talking about the second show, because there was a crazy moment where Ben-K, again, he was holding someone in place and Shimizu was coming off the ropes, but again, Ben-K didn't manage to hold on to the Maximum member, and so they got out of the way, and this led Shimizu into shoulder tackling Ben-K, and he didn't knock him down, he didn't even really hurt him, but then the camera like zoomed in on both of them, and you could see that Ben-K was fuming, he was so pissed off. And then I immediately thought back to the previous show, as I was talking about, where he'd already been floored by Shimizu, and it was almost as if, like, that's the beautiful thing about pro wrestling. There's pro wrestling, it just goes across, it transcends language. You don't need any dialogue here. You can tell that that Ben-K is just like, fuck, dude, okay, we're meant to be tag team partners, meant to be the most dominant team in Dragon Gate, and you've just tried to attack me, even if it's by accident. You've just attacked me for the second time in 2 days. What the hell's going on? And Shimizu was kind of like trying to apologize, like, hey, dude, you know that was an accident. And Ben-K just went back to his corner, and Park and who else was it? Sakamoto. They were sort of like patting him on the back, being like, hey, big guy, it's all good. It's all good. He didn't mean it. So then we moved on from that little storyline element, and we just went into the traditional, big Dragon Gate main event tag team match stuff. Obviously this wasn't a main event, but the crazy pace these guys were all working at, it felt like a main event. Jason Lee got a really fun hot tag. You got everyone running in. You got a fantastic series of attacks from Maximum. Everyone's working well, great chemistry. And then R.E.D was sort of like, hey, you guys can't, over impress, what's the word? You guys can't show us up. So they in turn showed up and pulled off their own sort of sick moves. Ben-K was a bit unwilling to sort of help out with Shimizu and the rest of R.E.D at first. When he first got back in the ring, there was a moment where the rest of R.E.D cleared the ring and knocked all the other Maximum members off their apron, and Ben-K got in at the very end after everyone had already been knocked down. He was, sort of listless, not really willing to help, and Shimizu had to really convince him, like, hey, come on, dude, just help me with this tag team move, and, Ben-K was like, ugh, fine, and then he was sort of, back into it. He sort of got over that little hump, and he's like, okay, yeah, I need to focus on R.E.D, but then there was a crazy moment where Shimizu once again accidentally attacked Ben-K, because Ben-K, I can't remember if he was actually holding someone down or he was just in front of someone, in front of a Maximum member who just dived out of the way. But either way, Shimizu ended up taking Ben-K out with another lariat. So this is the second time in like 2 days that Ben-K has accidentally been taken out by his beloved fellow tag team champion partner with a massive lariat. And obviously Ben-K, if he could have stood up at that moment, if he hadn't just been totally destroyed by his own partner's lariat, he would have been saying, dude, what the fuck? Luckily, unlike on the Osaka show, this friendly fire didn't end up costing R.E.D the match, as Shimizu then hit Jason Lee with a big slam for the win. So, yeah, this match was very good, very fun second half. The first half, it wasn't as high octane, obviously, but there were still some very cool moments. I really enjoyed Dragon Kid being worked over, and I like seeing that fire from Doi, especially, and then the R.E.D members working over Kid, respectively. So you've got Maximum sort of showing R.E.D that they can be just as, brutal in how they gang up. Obviously, though, R.E.D would always surpass them in that because they're grimy little heels. You just want to hate them, even though they got cool members. You just want to fucking hate them. So yeah, great energy in the second half, crazy chemistry, all the usual plaudits that Dragon Gate tag team matches get. And yeah, the real interesting angle here is Big Ben because he was big tension. Like in the post match, Shimizu, obviously he was the one that got the win over Jason Lee, so he's celebrating in the ring. But Ben K just walked off. Like he wasn't even angry. He just looked totally dejected and just totally uninterested in even being in the same ring as Ben K. As being in the same ring as Shimizu. And Shimizu was over the ropes, like, calling out to him. But then Park and Sakamoto also left. Like, they didn't stay to celebrate. And I don't think that's implying that Park and Sakamoto have also, like, turned on Shimizu. But I just think they were sort of, like, feeling the awkwardness in their team, being like, oh, we can't really celebrate with Shimizu, knowing that this would probably piss off Ben K, given how he's so agitated right now. So they left, and Shimizu looked like a bit of a fool. He's like, oh, damn, I just won the tag team match for my team, but my team's sort of pissed at me. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where this goes. I would love for as sad as it is to say, I would love for a breakup of Big Ben, even though it would suck to not have them together anymore. But for a singles match between Ben K and Shimizu, that would be awesome. Especially as long as Ben K gets to keep the edge that he has with his heel character, but, just become a tweener, just be a really cool babyface who just happens to do a few dastardly things sometimes. That'd be awesome, because then he wouldn't feel as, like, squeaky clean and sort of lame as he was before the heel turn, but he'd still be cheerable, he'd still be doing the crazy power displays, great sense of, great display of passion and all that. And yeah, it'd just be that's what I want for Ben K, okay? If I want one thing for Ben K in 2019, it's a really solid singles run. He doesn't even have to go for, a title. I just want to see him in way more singles action, because I honestly think that's where he thrives. Like, obviously he's totally awesome. He's a beast in tag team matches, but singles matches, he can really become a star there. So yeah, this was my match of the night. I gave it 3.5 stars. I feel like you may not find this any different from your usual sort of Dragon Gate tag team match that you'd see on the main event of any other, like, house show. But I really thought it was well worked, and that Big Ben breakup teaser is also at the back of my mind. That's also pretty enjoyable. There was also follow-up on another another tease of a breakup between a stable, as we got Dragon Kid once again going on mic and berating the rest of Maximum, as in, I believe it was Osaka, he'd already gone over and berated Doi and Yoshino for dropping falls, and this time he berated Jason Lee, who was the one who took the fall from Shimizu. And this time, according to translations, he was, like, going on at them, but then they all ended up storming out, and then he immediately realized, like, oh shit, I just pissed off everyone. And then he immediately started apologizing and being like, oh guys, please don't air this, cut this out of the replay. And he was like, oh, I didn't have Kaito Ishida to come out and tell me off and put me back on the track as I did back in Osaka, and now I've said too much. And they're still playing this off as a joke, and, like, even when the rest of the Maximum members stormed out, they were, like, all their expressions and just the way they did it so nonchalantly, it all came off as, like, a big joke, and the crowd was, like, laughing. But I really wonder if they're going to swerve us, and they're going to take this thing where it's like, oh haha, those silly Maximum boys, they're just fighting, but really they love each other, and they're actually going to turn this into an angle where, like, Dragon Kid gets kicked out or something. Like, that would be so weird, because Maximum is such an awesome team, Doi, Yoshino, Kid, but it would spice things up, obviously. And I'm a sucker for promotions that just randomly throw a wrench in things, even if it doesn't make sense. If they do something crazy, like, if New Japan was like, okay, starting from today, Okada's joining the Bullet Club, or starting from tomorrow, Tanahashi's going to, I don't know, do some weird shit. Tanahashi's going to start being a bad wrestler as, like, a gimmick. I'd immediately be interested in that. So yeah, even if it's not actually a good story and storyline, to be a bit redundant there, I'll be interested to see if Dragon Kid actually ends up staying with Maximum, because they've been planting so many seeds. Like, we'll obviously see if this continues past these 3 shows, if they continue doing the Dragon Kid berating Maximum thing. But yeah, it'd be interesting. Maybe Dragon Kid goes on a further singles run, gets to establish himself a bit more. Maybe he links up again with the members from his old Over Generation stable. We'll see what happens. Another interesting thing to note is on the show, Dragon Kid introduced the new Brave Gate title, and the old title was ruined by Eita at the end of the final gate match. Eita looked like he was making a sudden dramatic face turn. He was going to give the title to Dragon Kid, but then at the very last moment, he ripped the entire gold of the belt off of the actual leather, and so the new belt is white leather. I think I like the idea of having a white leather belt, but I think the leather looks a bit oversized. Like there's way too big of a margin between the actual gold of the belt. But other than that, looks good. It's a bit too clean, so once it's been used and passed around a bit, it'll have a more natural looking shine to it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my analysis of the new belt. I hope that was useful to your understanding of the promotion. During the ad break, or I guess the mid-show break, we saw some clips of Kondo versus Mochizuki interactions from 2004 when they were in a three-way match, so I guess that was probably the last time these two faced off. Speaking of which, I can't wait for the Dragon Gate archive to get expanded because they've been uploading one Toryumon event per month, I think, and it's just going to take ages. I think they recently uploaded the rest of the 2017 Infinity shows, so it feels like it's going to take 10 years for them to finally get up the rest of their catalog stuff from 1999 up to 2016, which is what they're mostly missing. But yeah. Also, there was a really big announcement. So the announcer came in the ring and announced there's going to be a special Toryumon versus T2P tag match on the 5th of February Korakuen Hall show. So I'm not super well versed in this, but I believe I've got all this information right. So T2P was a secondary Toryumon promotion that was around at the same time as Toryumon, because there was a different class of Japanese students who were training in the Toryumon Mexico system, and the first class became the first batch of Toryumon wrestlers, obviously, but then the second class, which had the likes of Sachihoko Boy, Yashi and Yoshino, those types, they ended up being in T2P first, and then once Toryumon sort of closed down when Ultimo Dragon, I can't remember the exact history, but whatever he did to shut it down, then they merged, and that was how, we got the likes of Yoshino and such actually joining Toryumon officially. So there's going to be a tag team match there, and they announced the return of Taru Owashi. No, wait, Taru Owashi, yeah. They announced the return of Toru Owashi, and I'd actually been watching a bit of his matches in the early Toryumon shows that are up on the Dragon Gate network, and I thought he was fine. He was very grimy, but cool, and he got a really big pop, and apparently this is his first appearance in Dragon Gate since 2004. I believe he was there for a few of their shows, but then he ended up, after they became Dragon Gate, but then he ended up leaving at the end of the year, I think. Okay. Quick correction, I just realized I confused him with another wrestler from early Toryumon called Taru. So I have in fact not been watching Toru Owashi on the Dragon Gate network, I've been watching Taru. Easy mistake, I'm glad that you will forgive me. Anyways, let's move on to the next match. This was the rookie ranking final between Shun Skywalker and Kaito Ishida. So, these guys are awesome. They're probably my two of my top three favorite wrestlers from the rookies. I really enjoy UT. Even the match earlier on the show from UT really made it competitive up there, being like, oh, is UT going to be my second or even my first favorite? But, these guys are cool. Ishida, obviously, I went over about my issues with his selling, but, when he's just solely focusing on striking, he's great. And Skywalker, fantastic high flyer, so how could this not be good? So from the early sections, Ishida controlled with his very stiff strikes. Skywalker was like, okay, you're gonna use your kicks. I'm gonna start, working over the legs. And I guess I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad thing, because Skywalker did end up doing a very minimal amount of work on Ishida's legs throughout the match. He hit a few dragon screws when Ishida would throw a kick, and I guess it's a bit disappointing because they didn't actually try to do a big focus on the leg throughout the match, the story being that Ishida had an injured leg. But I guess it's also good because then there's just more potential for Ishida to give another subpar selling performance of the leg. So I guess that sort of worked in my benefit at least. So Skywalker was awesome. He had a beautiful, dangerous rope walk moonsault on Ishida to the outside. Then we got some nice moves and tease moves on the apron. Ishida continued, a strike assault whenever he could, and he was getting great impact on all of it. It was a really great moment where Ishida had a dive, and Skywalker caught him, and he had Skywalker had the rookies behind him, so it was actually easier for him to. It was like he had a wall behind him to catch Ishida and then lift him up, and he hit the Ashla, which is basically a big sit-out inverted crucifix side slam. If you can take all those words that I just said, that sort of word salad I just said of various wrestling moves and put that in your head. So a sit out inverted crucifix side slam. It's pretty cool. So he hit that on the outside. Obviously, he hit it on the mat, and it really looked impactful because obviously it's going to be a bit safe, but the way he lifted him up, in the crucifix position, arms raised up way above his head, but then brought him down. Like I could tell that it was probably still going to hurt, but it looked relatively safe. So the people worried about the wrestlers getting hurt, these young guys getting hurt, you don't need to worry about that. Skywalker took good care of his friend Ishida. Back in the ring, Skywalker finally started bringing out like more of his aerial attacks. Before that, we'd only seen the rope walk moonsault, but from then we're getting way more of the aerial attacks. There was big drama as both men sort of delayed Ishida trying to hit a suplex tiger hold on Skywalker up in the turnbuckle. They spent like what must have been like a minute there fighting. Skywalker desperately trying to hang on to the post, Ishida desperately trying to get that tiger suplex hold. In the end, he opted to instead just go for a German, and Skywalker ended up taking it, flipping over. Obviously, that's like the safest way to take like a top rope German or like any sort of top rope suplex. Well, I guess including the superplex. If you just take it like directly on the back of your neck, there's, it's so easy for that to go wrong. So, Skywalker just flipped over it. That was a, nice looking move. There were some more really scary stiff kicks from Ishida. There was also a great moment where, in a callback to Skywalker doing like, sort of minimal work on Ishida's leg, he caught the leg, and this was how Skywalker had previously done his two big dragon screws, but this time Ishida, knowing that he'd already been hit by this dragon screw counter twice, he let the leg get caught, and then he allowed Skywalker to do the motion of the dragon screw, but Ishida immediately ripped his leg back and then got a great kick on Skywalker and got a really cool near fall from that moment. So then we got a bunch of crazy close like cradle pins and roll up pin attempts. Obviously, I've gone on about those ad nauseum. Just great at building up tension. Skywalker had some great bumps from Ishida's power moves. The match looked really over after Ishida had another tiger suplex in the ring, and obviously it didn't finish there. Great atmosphere at this point, very tense, great chemistry. There was a really hype 1 count Ashla kick out. The Ashla again is that sit out inverted blah 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 thing that I talked about earlier, and then it really looked like, wow, are they actually going to give the win to Ishida here? Because I genuinely thought going into this that Skywalker was going to get the push, because even in his own matches I feel like he was always the one that stood out the most compared to the rest of the rookies. Even if I thought the other rookies all impressed, sometimes even more so than Skywalker, it felt like Skywalker was the one who got like really big individual spots. So I was expecting Skywalker to win, but then when Ishida got the 1 count off the Ashla, I was like, wow, are they actually going to give him like, a sort of a, I guess for a lack of a better term, a Superman sort of comeback at the end where he gets destroyed but then ends up, fighting it out, gritting out the win. But then Skywalker ended up hitting one more Ashla, and then he got a moonsault from the top rope, and that gave him the win. So this was a very good match. It was actually, I think this might have been the longest match on the show. I think it went like 18 minutes. I desperately wanted it to go on. Like as soon as Ishida got that 1 count kick out after the first, or I guess second Ashla, that was really hype. I was really getting into the match. Sadly, it ended right there. I'm not sure what else you can really expect from a rookie match though. I thought this was really good. This is my favorite rookie ranking tournament match. I couldn't choose between 3.25 or 3.5 stars. So, it's sort of in that range. And again, I'm not saying this is bad at all. Again, like listen to how I've described this. It was a very good match. I just thought there was way more potential to, put in a few more hype sequences. And I thought they just had, there are a few more moments where they could have really done better to work on both of their positives to, create a few more interesting sequences. But yeah, as I said, very good match. In the post-match, Ishida, he was offered a handshake by Skywalker, and it looked like he was going to take it, but then he kicked it away, and that's always depressing. I know it's wrestling. Hey guys, I know it's wrestling. I know it's a story, but it's depressing in storyline where there's, two really good talents, and one of them, or at least like, they just don't see eye to eye. It's like, come on, why can't good wrestlers just be good friends? The other big thing in the post-match was that Skywalker called out Ben K. And the reason for this was that I was surprised by this, in fact, that Ben K, I knew he was young, but I didn't realize he's actually from the exact same rookie class as the rest of these rookies. It was just that obviously Dragon Gate saw immense talent in Ben K, and that makes sense. You see the guy in the ring, he's crazy talented. So they gave him a way bigger push than alongside all the rest of his rookie class. So Skywalker, the idea was that he was like, hey, I've just won the rookie tournament, that's awesome, but there's one more rookie from my class who I have to prove myself with. I proved myself against in order to prove that I really am the number one rookie. And turns out Shun actually had his first match against Ben K, and same for Ben K. Ben K's first match in Dragon Gate was against Shun Skywalker. So there's also that sort of history there. Obviously, I don't think this was like a 5 6 or 4 year long booking plan by Dragon Gate, where they're like, okay, we're going to put these two rookies, they're going to face each other, and then in 5 years' time, if they're relatively popular, then we're going to build up to a match. I don't think that's what happened, but it's just fun when reality sort of like falls in place perfectly like that, to get like a great story. So Ben-K came out. He was very silent. I think the idea was, I believe I read translations where Skywalker was like, now Ben-K, if you want to accept my challenge, then don't say anything. So then Ben-K took the mic and dropped it, and the crowd was like, oh, and me watching this in real time, not having the translations, I was really confused. I thought Ben-K had just totally blown off the challenge, and I was like, okay, that's really disappointing. Why is the crowd cheering? But apparently the match is set, and I can't remember what show that's set for, but we're going to see that in early February, so that's going to be really exciting. The second to last match was between Natural Vibes and Tribe Vanguard. So this was KZ, Susumu, and Horiguchi versus Yamato, Kagetora, and Kai. So this was another really good match. I thought this was on the same level as the rookie ranking final. I gave this I guess I gave this a ranking between 3.25 and 3.5 stars. Again, not like a blowaway match, but a good match that you'd enjoy if you went out of your way to see. The story here was obviously KZ. He's looking for another big popular Dragon Gate star scalp. He's taken out Doi. He's taken out Yoshino, and I was thinking maybe he can get Yamato here because Kagetora not as big a star, and Kai he's an outside star. That would have been big if he got Kai as well, especially with how well protected Kai's been in the promotion since coming in. So yeah, again, I love the Natural Vibes entrance, and Susumu, he still looked like he's not having fun, but KZ, he is a great MC. That's why his name was originally MC KZ. The rest of Natural Vibes, they're all enjoying it. You always get into it. How can you not see the Natural Vibes entrance and the dance and the song and everything and just not get into it? A little quick thing to note was that Natural Vibes' flexi band spot finally paid off. So Horiguchi, he went into the crowd, whatever other member of Natural Vibes was holding whatever other member of Tribe Vanguard down, and they finally got the flexi band spot. So, first time for everything, I guess. I think that's probably the first time in 2019 they actually hit it without an issue. Story throughout the match, this wasn't like a major focus, but all throughout the match, whenever KZ and Yamato faced off, KZ always looked really strong. Obviously, Yamato has a bigger build, so his strikes just come off as looking way stiffer, but KZ, he gets great impact on his uppercuts and elbows and everything, so whenever they faced off, he always looked really strong. Again, everyone's running in, showing off, stiff strikes and impactful power moves all around, typical Dragon Gate goodness. Greatness? We'll say greatness. KZ got a really close pin on Yamato after a series of attacks from Natural Vibes, and then he got a really big elbow drop. There were some more beastly lariats from Susumu. Kagetora continued being great, pulling off all sorts of quick, complex, demanding spots. Like, whenever he runs off the ropes or he comes flying off the ropes, he'll deliver, some really great strikes. And, some people that come off the ropes and deliver a strike, it looks sort of weak, at least when they go airborne. But Kagetora, he really makes it look, very flashy. It almost reminds me of, Misawa. Obviously, Kagetora has more agility than Misawa, but that's what it really reminded me of. Then Natural Vibes and Tribe Vanguard started fighting on the outside, and the story here was that Natural Vibes were going to hold the other members of Tribe Vanguard outside to allow KZ and Yamato to face off in the ring. So this was the story of Yamato's big elbows to KZ versus KZ's big uppercuts back. And KZ ended up getting the better of Yamato. He hit a J driller. I'm not exactly sure what the actual term for that is. It's that I guess it's the Tiger Driver that Kenny Omega hits, holds them up in a pile driver and just drops them right down on the head. So he hit that J driller, and then he hit a frog splash, which is surprising, and he ended up getting the win. And, I jumped out of my seat, damn, his third big Dragon Gate scalp in 3 days. He's taken out Doi, Yoshino, and Yamato. Sorry, did I say Yamato? And now Yamato, we can finally say that KZ is in fact a big boy, He's finally done it. He's achieved big boy status. So yeah, this is a very good match. It's crazy how big of a push KZ is getting, but it finally made sense because on the mic in the post-match, he called out Puck, and it was cool to see him call out Puck in English because, Puck takes a while to come out, and then KZ's, speaking in broken English, but it's really cool because he obviously knows, quite a bit of the English vocab to be, to use the words that he did, and then Puck did his sort of, usual snaring sort of, I'm better than you, I'm royalty, I'm the king sort of response, being like, oh, I remember you, KZ, you used to be a joke in the stable I was in, sorry. And so that match is also set. The Ref, who is also the on-screen GM, I believe his name's Yagi. He also came into the ring and he confirmed, "Yep, we're going to have a match." And the match is set for Hakata Star Lanes. And it was funny because this crowd, they were sort of like, "Boo, we want this in Tokyo, we want this in Korakuen Hall." But then Yagi gave an understandable reason for the title match being in Hakata Star Lanes. He said, "Firstly, this is going to be the last match in Hakata Star Lanes because it's being shut down. I don't believe it's being shut down forever. I feel like there'd be a way bigger like story or news around that, but I believe it's been shut down, I think, for like Olympic development or something, because it's going to be involved in the Olympics somehow. I feel like that's what I've read. If there's a sports building in Japan that's being like shut down for a period from 2019 to 2021 onwards, you can probably assume that it's probably going to be related to the Olympics. Well, when is the Olympics? It's not this year, is it? Let's see, 2008, 2012. Oh my god, the Olympics is this year. Sorry guys, I've just realized on air the Olympics is this year. So you know what? Scratch that. If there's a building that's been shut down in 2019 or early 2020, then it's going to be related to the Olympics. If there's one shut down in 2021, as I said before, then it's probably totally unrelated. Anyways, the second reason, sorry to get into that little rant there, the second reason that Yagi said the match was going to be in Hakata Star Lanes was because there was the Final Gate show at the end of 2019, which is in the same city as where Hakata Star Lanes is, which is, as I desperately try to load the page and try waste time, Fukuoka. Damn, I thought in the back of my mind, I was like, is it Fukuoka? Should I just go out on a limb and say Fukuoka and just edit this out if I'm wrong? But yeah, so Park wasn't available at the end of 2018 to have a Dreamgate match in Fukuoka for Final Gate. So Yagi was like, hey, we're going to give you guys a title match. It's going to be here. So yeah, that's what was set. But after that, we weren't even done. Yeah, you thought a KZ versus Park match being set up was all we're going to get in the post match? No, because then after that, Doi and Yamato came out. The reason they came out was because KZ, in preparation to making his challenge to Park, he was on the mic going on about, hey, I beat Doi, I beat Yoshino, now I've beat Yamato, hey, I deserve a challenge for Park. And so that's why Doi and Yamato came out. They were like, hey, okay, yeah, you may have beaten us, but we don't like how you're using our names. You're jumping off of our names, off of our backs in order to get this title shot. And so what ended up resulting from this was a bit of a bicker, and KZ accepting, or at least proposing, a three-way match between him, Doi, and Yamato. So that's really exciting. At first, I thought that was going to be like the first challenge for KZ should he win the Dreamgate title, but it's actually going to happen the show before KZ gets his title shot against Park. I believe that's correct, at least. So yeah, really excited for that. Obviously the multi-tags in Dragon Gate are already crazy. I'm really excited to see a match between these three. I think they're all great. I feel like they all bring something different. I'm not exactly sure who I'm cheering for here. I feel like I'm just going to go along with the flow. I'm just going to cheer for KZ because, they'll want to keep him strong going into his match against Park. It's pretty obvious he's going to win, He's probably going to pin, I'd say, Doi. I feel like, this is my limited, Dragon Gate fan knowledge here. I feel like Yamato is a bigger star in Dragon Gate, at least right now, than Doi is. So I feel like Doi is going to be one taking the fall. But anyway, even if the result is, pretty obvious, or at least to me, it could be totally wrong. Maybe Doi ends up pinning KZ and he somehow gets to put himself into this title match. Oh my gosh, I just realized. I'm just realizing right now, that would actually make a lot of sense. Like, it would be bad because it would make KZ look weak immediately to his title match. So I'm not in total agreement with it, but hear me out. The excuse here would be that KZ already got, a massive push at the start, and you already look super strong by getting wins over three big stars. So is one loss here to either Yamato or Doi in a three-way match where there's, more wiggle room to be like, oh, it was difficult because you're going up against two people. Is that really so bad? Because then it would also make sense to have, if you got Yamato in this three-way match with KZ and Park for the Dreamgate title, then it would also be an easier way to get the title off of Park, because then you could have, maybe Yamato actually ends up getting the title, and then KZ has a bigger story with chasing the Dreamgate title for the rest of the year. Because I am on with other people where I think it's maybe a bit too early for KZ to win the title, because he's only just started this mega push, you know? Like, his first push was really beating, well, not beating, but having a great performance against Mochizuki at the start of 2018. Then he became essentially the leader of a new stable and natural vibes, did well in the tag team matches. I feel like in this year, it's like way too much of a drastic change to have him suddenly beating the stars, and then what, like a month into that story, they're telling of him beating all these stars, he's suddenly the Dreamgate champion. So I feel like they could do that story there, where Yamato, you know, or Doi, I think it's probably more likely to be Yamato, you know, actually ends up earning his way into a match in a three-way for the title with Park and KZ, by way of pinning KZ in this three-way match, which is like a week before the show. Again, this is probably just, you know, some lame fantasy booking, you know, fan fantasy booking, again, from a guy who isn't very well versed in Dragon Gate. But, you know, I could imagine them doing that. And I selfishly want that, because I really want to get invested in the story with KZ going for the title, you know? He's just started looking strong. He can have like a little setback here with Yamato that can help get the title off of Park, and, you know, Park can do whatever the hell he wants. He can go to AEW, or he can stay around if he's truly loyal. But then the story can become about, you know, KZ, maybe he wins the King of Gate tournament, and then he can challenge Yamato at Kobe World. I think that'll be a really cool story. I'm probably the only one that thinks that's cool, but you know, hey, if you think that's cool, you're a cool dude as well. That's what I've got to say about that. Okay. Hey guys, turns out I made another little error, which I'm now going to correct, so look forward to that. I'm still in New Japan fan mentality, where I see a big tournament from a company, and I'm like, oh, well, whoever wins that, they obviously get to challenge at the biggest show of the year. So I was immediately thinking, oh, whoever wins King of Gate, they immediately get to challenge at Kobe World. But as soon as I said that, I was like, let me actually do some research, because I feel like that's not what they do. And yeah, turns out I think they just get the next closest title challenge. You know, if they win at King of Gate, it doesn't mean they're going to the winner is going to challenge at Kobe World. You know, sometimes they'll challenge at whatever big show is next, you know, at Hakata Star Lanes or whatever. So that's actually what happened with Yoshino when he won last year. And so you know what, made a mistake there, not going to happen again. But you know, it actually allows me to talk about that. I really enjoy that style of, you know, the G1 winner, because, you know, with New Japan, you have the G1 winner, and then you sort of have the rest of the year all planned out, and it's sort of like, oh, okay, well, they're not going to lose their briefcase now. But I really like that Dragon Gate approach, where it's, you know, you just get the next available opportunity for a title shot. You know, I feel like then the rest of the year isn't as obvious, and, you know, there's more room for surprises, and, you know, not, it's just not as formulaic. So yeah, I may have made a little kerfuffle there, but, you know, it allowed me to give this interesting little analysis of the differences between Dragon Gate and New Japan's biggest tournaments, and why I think I prefer Dragon Gates. Back to reviewing the actual Korakuen Hall show, just two quick little general points. So after this match, we had the wrestlers of Dragon Gate who are going to be participating in the Torimon versus T2P match in February. They came out, and it was a cute little thing where it was like Yoshino, he came out and he's like, when I wrestled in T2P, I wasn't Masato Yoshino, because at the time he was part of the Italian Connection, which is, you know, obviously, as you can tell by the name, an Italian themed group. I feel like if that happened today, they'll be sort of considered racist, because, you know, they're taking on Italian names and like acting Italian, but, you know, I obviously don't care. And his name was actually Yoshino, so without the S. And then Yashi came out, and he was like, well, back in T2P, I was Yashini. You know, this is like very generic sort of like Italian name. And then Sachihoko Boy came out, and he was like, I was actually Sachihoko Machine number 2. No, he was Sachihoko Machine, and so this time he's going to be Sachihoko Machine number 2. And yeah, that they did that. It was a cute little thing. The bigger news though was that Jason Lee has apparently signed a full-time contract with Dragon Gate, and I was unaware that he hadn't. Like, I figured he'd probably only stay there for like a year, because, you know, he's from Hong Kong. He probably has you know, desires to remain in Hong Kong, sort of build up that wrestling scene there, you know, in his home country. But yeah, it turns out he's going to be staying in Dragon Gate for much longer now, and that's awesome. He's one of the best members of Maximum. He's obviously not, he doesn't have the star quality of like Naruki Doi or Masato Yoshino, but I think he probably is my third favorite member of Maximum, you know, and sometimes I actually think I enjoy him more than Doi. So yeah, great to see that he's sticking around. Can't wait to see what else he gets up to for the rest of the year. Now, we come to the main event. This was Mochizuki versus Shuji Kondo. And again, look, I don't have to explain it a million times, but I'm going to, because I'm just, I'm that annoying. I'm not super well versed in Dragon Gate, but I generally know the history here. So, Mochizuki and Kondo, I don't believe they're from the exact same class, but they sort of have, they cross paths quite a bit in the early Torimon and Dragon Gate system. And Shuji Kondo, he actually ended up leaving Dragon Gate at the end of, I believe it was 2004 or maybe 2005. And apparently it was because him, along with some other people who Kondo associated with in Dragon Gate, apparently they had bad attitudes. So they ended up getting fired. And this is his first appearance in Dragon Gate in like 10 plus years. It might even actually be since 2004, I think. And according to like Dragon Gate diehard fans, they thought this match would never happen because apparently there's maybe like a bit of bad blood between Shuji Kondo and Mochizuki, as well as just Shuji Kondo and Dragon Gate. So I was really excited for this match. And I wouldn't end up, I don't know if I'd call this my match of the night because, as I said, I thought the Maximum versus R.E.D match earlier was probably my match of the night, but this came really close. But at the same time, it was a bit disappointing, and I feel bad saying that. But again, guys, this is a really good match. So don't let my rating of 3.5 stars, which for the record is what I'm giving it, don't let that dissuade you from checking this out because this was good. Especially, it was only 16 minutes, and that's sort of a negative because obviously I wanted it to go on longer because it was a sort of slow started match and built up and had a really great finishing stretch. But at the same time, if you want to recommend this match to someone, they're like, oh, you're going to recommend me another 30-minute long, New Japan title match? It's like, no, this is only a 16-minute long Korakuen Hall match, and they'll be more likely to be like, oh, okay, I don't mind watching that. So that's the cost benefit analysis of the length of this match. So anyways, yeah, slow methodical start. Mochizuki was really going at it on Kondo. He was working over the arm because the idea is that Kondo, apparently his lariats are called King Kong lariats. I don't know if that's actually just the name that all of his lariats are given because he himself looks like a mini sort of King Kong, and like he does sort of look like apish, I guess. I don't know what it is, just his facial features. He looks sort of, not like a monkey, but he just looks like a sort of, like literally like a King Kong, and just the way he holds his arms out, sort of like a gorilla, I guess. He looks like a total beast, he looks awesome. And yeah, his lariats, whenever he hits someone with them, like, it's almost like by default that's going to be called a King Kong lariat. But yeah, so Mochizuki was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna zoom in on the arm. I'm gonna try work over that. He actually had a moonsault from the apron to the outside on Kondo, and that was surprising. I can't remember watching Mochizuki ever do a moonsault before, so he was pulling out a few new things for this big matchup. And yeah, he continued working over Kondo's arm with kicks. At one point, Kondo accidentally sent himself into the pole with the arm. Obviously it's the traditional spot, like Walter going with chops against someone who's up against the pole, but the person ducks, and then, oh, my own limb went into the pole. Oh, what a shame, what a travesty. Who could have seen this coming, except for everyone in the stands and everyone watching at home? So yeah, the work continued on the arm, all of Mochizuki's kicks, but eventually Kondo was like, okay, you know what? I'm getting sick of this shit. Okay, Mochizuki, you watch yourself. And he started bringing out all of his big power moves. And he started working over Mochizuki's legs because, we've got sort of mirroring limb work there. So, Mochizuki's main weapon is his kicks. So Kondo works over that. Kondo's main weapon is his lariats. Mochizuki works over the arms. Makes sense. I really like that sort of symmetry in wrestling matches. There was a really cool spot where Kondo locked on it's called the Gorilla Clutch, which is basically an inverted Texas clover leaf, but it actually looks like the idea is that it's like an inverted calf splicer. So he's basically using his forearms instead to bring down the calf over Mochizuki's own leg. He's actually trying to force it over his leg, so going in the opposite direction. So that looks really cool. And again, like this guy Kondo, I haven't seen much of him, but he really does look like a total beast. Like everything he does, his few flying attacks, his massive strikes, his power moves, even his submission holds, they all look like really really brutal. Like I know this is wrestling, but taking any of these moves from this guy, he just makes them look like painful no matter what. So Mochizuki, he's getting his legs worked over. He's still trying to fire back and deliver the kicks, but he's still showing clear signs of pain. Obviously he's not going to stop throwing the kicks because, that's his main weapon, but he's limping around. He's gesturing to the leg. His posture's all out of whack. He's limping around. I think I already said that. But yeah, he's just taking a massive toll from Kondo's work. There are a few awkward moments, like, sloppy moves or just one guy would get off the other's pace. And there was nothing like major, like I wouldn't say there were any outright botches, but there were moments where they were sort of going for the sequence where you'd get, a counter to a counter, and one of them would just be a bit awkward, nothing too serious, but, just thought I'd mention it. Sadly, as I'm finding I have a bit of an issue in a lot of Dragon Gate's matches, both guys sort of dropped their selling towards the end. They were doing well for in the real time, and for a bit of the short term, they were both doing a good job, but they both sort of dropped it. But this sort of made sense because they themselves had both, not in kayfabe, but they sort of agreed to not focus on each other's limbs. So, Mochizuki stopped targeting Kondo's arms as much. Kondo stopped targeting Mochizuki's legs as much. So I guess you can excuse it there, but then it's like, why introduce the dual limb work in the first place? Because it was such a big focus in the first half of the match. So, why drop it? But, the rest of the match was still good. We're still getting, crazy stiff kicks from Mochizuki and, really stiff, painful looking lariats from Kondo. It was just, at the same time, I'm like, oh, this is so brutal. That's so stiff. That's got to hurt. But why isn't he selling the limb still? Because, it's a missed storytelling opportunity, guys. You just got to, it doesn't take much to just grip your arm a bit after using it or show that you have a bit of a limp from using your injured leg. It's not much, and it just adds so much enjoyment to the wrestling fans' experience, or at least the really persnickety. Is that the right term? The really I don't want to use the word. I'm not going to use the word that I know other people. The really detail-specific fans like me. That's what I want to say. The really detail-specific fans like me. That's the sort of stuff that I really enjoy seeing. So, anyways, get my selling criticism out of the way. The finishing stretch was really cool. Mochizuki tried no-selling Kondo's superplex, but he was clearly struggling. Like when I say he tried no-selling, I obviously don't mean outside the kayfabe sense, like what I was talking about before, where he sort of just brushed off the fact that any work had been done to his leg. In this instance, you could tell that he was clearly trying to power through the superplex, but had actually taken the full brunt of it. He was sort of like almost dazed standing up, taking so much pain from the crash and then immediately trying to stand up, almost like, caused himself to faint. He tried standing up to Kondo's lariats, and he was doing a good job, and, the crowd was really getting into it because they're like, oh, Kondo's such a beast, and here is Mochizuki, our Dragon Gate hero on his 25th, is it 25th or 20th? Or on whatever, on his 20th or 25th anniversary, he's standing up to this big dude's lariats, but eventually Kondo just keep going at him, finally put Mochizuki down, and just one more King Kong lariat, and that gave Kondo the win. So, this was a very good match. The structure was a bit simplistic. I really enjoyed the focus with both men going after each other's limbs at the start. The second half was basically just, stiff kicks versus stiff lariats with a few big power moves thrown in. But even if it was simplistic, it was still really well executed. I was, a bit disappointed with the selling. I've gone on about that, but it wasn't enough to make me say, oh, this is a bad match. This person didn't sell this move for X amount of seconds. This is a 1 out of 10 match, worst match ever. This was still a good match. I gave this 3.5 stars. It was really close to being my match of the night. I guess I really was surprised with Mochizuki not getting the win here, and apparently it's actually been a running. What do you call it? A running gag? Not really a gag. That makes it sound like it's an intentional joke, but it's been a running theme. That's the term. Where on all of his anniversaries, from like his 5th, 10th, 15th, 20th, and now this, or whatever. I think maybe I went one anniversary too much, but apparently he's lost all of his anniversary matches. And I understand like when a wrestler is retiring or when they're leaving a promotion, losing a match, but why wouldn't you just have someone, win their anniversary match, especially with Kondo, who apparently had so much heat with Mochizuki and the rest of Dragon Gate. That's surprising. But anyways, good match. In the post-match, Kondo went on the mic and he showed a great, amount of appreciation to the fans as well as Mochizuki, and it was really cool because even though I'd heard stories about him apparently having, really bad heat with Dragon Gate, he gave thanks to the fans as well as the company itself, and he was like, even though we didn't leave on the best of terms, I was still a Dragon Gate person at heart, and I really appreciate what they did in my, like making him who he was today as a wrestler. So that was really cool. And he also said this might not be the last time that the Dragon Gate fans will see him in a Dragon Gate ring. So that's really cool. And then Mochizuki, he finished off the show. He went on mic, sort of like, not really apologized, sort of like said, oh, well, there was a loss, but, I'm still glad to be able to wrestle all these days. All this, you know what I mean? He's still glad to be wrestling because apparently he just turned 49. Like, what the hell? I knew he was in his at least mid-40s, but I thought he was like 46. But apparently he's 49. I'm just going to have to quickly fact-check this because I'm going to go on a quick little rant, and I just need to make sure that fact is correct, or else my entire rant's going to be off. Yep, I was not wrong. I do not need to add in a little correction blurb here in the editing. So I was in fact correct. He's 49, and like the only other I guess there's 3 wrestlers who are relatively old who still impress me to this day. So there is Minoru Tanaka, who spends most of his time in Noah. There is Minoru Suzuki, obviously from New Japan, and there's Masaki Mochizuki in Dragon Gate. And these guys are like the trinity of old guys who can still go. Mochizuki and Suzuki, they're both sort of, stiff, but obviously Suzuki's way more on the grappling and submission side. He does have a few stiff strikes, but he's not as focused on that. And Mochizuki, obviously with those stiff kicks, and just general, he's got really impressive agility. Like, the spot that I talked about for one of the earlier shows where he basically like puts his knee to his head when he's lifting up his leg, getting it ramped up to drive it down on some poor guy's genitals. It's just crazy that someone can be that I don't want to use, like, when I just say they're flat out old, it sounds bad, but it's crazy that someone could be almost 50 years old and basically be one of the best wrestlers, if not the best wrestler in his promotion. And like Minoru Tanaka, he's the same, but I'd honestly say he's even more impressive because Suzuki and Mochizuki, to some extent, they have a sort of an easier style to wrestle because, Minoru Tanaka, he's got to be, jumping around, using like a crazy amount of core strength to perform all these flips and acrobatics and everything. And that's not to take away from Mochizuki. I don't want to randomly take this anniversary match from Mochizuki and use it to put plaudits on Minoru. But it's just saying, like, the Japanese are crazy, dude. Like, if you find like a Japanese wrestler that's really dedicated to the craft, like these three guys, they will somehow find a way to just stay in peak shape and just fight until they're old. Like, I really hope, like, that's what I want for my favorite wrestlers, like from New Japan, All Japan, Noah, Dragon Gate. I really hope the guys who are like in their early 30s now will somehow manage to still be wrestling in 20 years. And I would be, like, honestly, I'm not going to say it would be a dream come true because it's like, hey, at the end of the day, this is still an art, this isn't your life, but it would honestly make my month. I won't say it will make my year or my life, but it would make one of my months in my future 20 years life if some of my favorite wrestlers are still around in 20 years time and still giving the sort of performances that these three guys, Suzuki, Minoru, and Mochizuki, are giving, because, it's really inspirational. Anyways, that was my little rant on older, not old, but older Japanese wrestlers who are still, fucking kick-ass today. That's what I have to say about that. So that finally brings me to the end of this Dragon Gate Open the New Year Gate / Rookie Ranking Tournament review. God, it's been going on for a while. So yeah, this Korakuen Hall show, the last one, that is obviously the best show. I gave this a 7 out of 10. You had 2 pretty good matches and 2 like really good matches, so this is a definite recommend. I'll just quickly look forward to the future. So there are some more Open the New Year Gate shows between January 19th and 21st, and I was just quickly looking over them, and on 2 of the 3 shows with cards announced, Big Ben have been kept apart. So, maybe we are, like, obviously I know we're going to continue developing this Big Ben, breakup tease angle, but yeah, they're also going to focus on that on the house shows, even the ones that don't make tape. So, that's going to continue. So the next big show, I know, according to Dragon Gate's site, there's going to be some shows, I believe, on the 25th and 26th of January, but like the next big show is going to be the 5th of February in Korakuen Hall. So that's where we're going to have the Toryumon versus T2P tag match, and I'm really excited for that. So that's going to have Don Fuji. Is it Don Fuji? I'm suddenly having a brain fart. Is that his name? Don Fuji? Yeah, well, whatever. I'm pretty sure it's Don Fuji. Yeah, so Don Fuji, Genki Horiguchi, Susumu Yokosuka, and Ryo Saito versus Yoshino, Yasini, Sachihoko Machine number 2, and Toru Owashi. And I believe I got all of those T2P names right for the Dragon Gate wrestlers. And yeah, I'll be interested to see how Toru Owashi goes because, as I said, despite my mistake earlier, I haven't actually seen him wrestle, but the crowd popped big for him when he was announced, so, I'll be excited to see that. Also on that show, we're going to get the Benkei versus Skywalker match, and we're going to have the Doi versus Yamato versus KC match. And like, that's an awesome card. Got 3 matches there that I'm really excited for. I feel like maybe I'm a bit of a cynic. I feel like Benkei versus Skywalker isn't going to get the time it deserves, Like, that's the sort of match that needs to go at least, like, I honestly think, like, at least 20 minutes, because you're going to have that great dynamic of Benkei's just massive power versus Skywalker's crazy acrobatics. I feel like it's going to get, like, maybe 12 minutes, and, it'd probably still be very good, but, just slightly underwhelming. That tag match is probably going to get a decent while, I'd say, because it's sort of like an anniversary match, and I feel like Dragon Gate's going to give that match enough respect to say, you know what, you guys get all your stuff in, you guys pace this how you want, make this a big landmark for our anniversary show. And Doi, Yamato, and KZ in the 3-way. Again, I've already given my sort of fantasy booking, offer, I guess. I always forget the right words when I'm giving this fucking podcast, but you know what? Yeah, you know what I mean. Doi, Yamato, KZ. I really hope we actually get my idea, and I don't think it would damage KZ because he's already gotten a massive push. It wouldn't hurt him if he's the one that gets pinned in this match. He wouldn't even necessarily have to be the one pinned. He could just get, like, maybe Yamato just like destroys KZ and throws him out of the ring, and that allows Yamato to end up pinning Doi, because then Yamato can say, oh, I've got a win over KZ, and I was able to physically dominate him in the match. So even if I didn't pin him directly, I feel I have earned my right back to challenge you as well as Park for the title. It would be a bit, I have to admit, even though this is what I really want to happen now that I've said it out loud, it would be really contrived in getting there because, you didn't need to have KZ beat Yamato in the first place in order to have this three-way. You could have done some other, I guess, admittedly more contrived stuff to get Yamato in this three-way match. So you didn't need to have Yamato have already been beaten by KZ. But look, I'd be really stoked for that. Even if it's Doi or Yamato who would make it into a three-way with Park, that'd be cool either way. I just think Dragon Gate, out of all the Japanese promotions, I feel like they do three-way matches, whether it's singles or tag matches. I feel like they do them the best, and they're the only promotion I would trust to do this properly. Not like New Japan with the what was that, the Omega, Cody, and Ibushi three-way match, which was it was good, but it was very disappointing in terms of New Japan main event standards. Anyways, I'm not reviewing New Japan here. I've got to remember that. So the next big show after that is February 10th. That's at Hakata Star Lanes, and that is going to be the title match between Park and KZ. And in the distance, I whisper, and maybe Yamato or Doi if they somehow win the triple threat match from the week earlier. And so that's what we've got to look forward to next. So yeah, finally, I'm totally done. Quickly, for the Pure Grade Puroresu show going forward, I'm planning on reviewing the Wrestle 1 January 5th show with Ashino defending the Wrestle 1 title against T-Hawk. I recently watched the 12/26 show, which just came out on tape, and that was really good. That had some really good matches and a really solid main event between Enfant Terribles. I think it's French, so Enfant Terribles against Strongheart. That was really good. So now I've got a bit of context going into the show. I'm really excited for that. There have also there's the joint Big Japan show from the 13th and the 14th, which has Violent Giants versus Strong BJ. So that's Suwama and Ishikawa versus Okabayashi and Sekimoto. And I already know the result. I'm not going to spoil it here for those who are unaware. So you guys are lucky. I'm sparing you guys this time. So that's on that show, as well as Ryuji Ito challenging, what's his name? Masayashi Takeda, or is it Masashi Takahashi? I always get them confused because it's two guys, very similar names. Anyway, so people have been going on about at least that Violent Giants match, and I'll see the rest of the show. I'll probably drop a review of that as well. What else? I'm also planning on doing a preview for New Japan's New Beginning tour, and I've heard that there's a DDT Korakuen Hall show coming up. So that's usually DDT's already done like 1 million shows in January alone, but I feel like the Korakuen Hall shows are usually when they put on like a pretty big showing. I know they had their 2,000 or 3,000 yen show on like the 4th of January or show, like really early, but I couldn't be bothered watching that. It looked like there was only one match worth watching, which was the Strong Hearts main event, and I will get around to watching that. But so look forward to those reviews. There've been some All Japan shows that have been coming out, but nothing that's been like too serious in terms of having like important title matches. So either way, just keep locked to the feed. Keep focused on Twitter. Again, I haven't been like plugging my stuff, so I'll do this. So my Twitter is Pure Grade Puro, which is just PURO after Pure Grade. Twitter's annoying. They don't allow you to put like an extra. Just give me the 4 extra characters. Then I can have Pure Grade Puroresu. It's all I need. So so I'm Pure Grade Puro on Twitter. If you just search Pure Grade Puroresu on Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, you'll come across my my channel where I'm posting everything. One thing, oh god, I've totally forgotten this. One thing that someone wanted me to do was just to go over like the wrestlers and the particular matches that really stood out to me from this tour, from the series of shows I'm reviewing. So I think I'll just quickly go into that, and that'll be the end of the show then. So to very quickly go over my standout matches for this tour, we had the R.E.D versus Tribe Vanguard match from day 2 in Osaka, and then the rest were all from day 3 in Tokyo. So we had Maximum versus R.E.D, Skywalker versus Ishida, Natural Vibes versus Tribe Vanguard, and Mochizuki versus Kondo. And my match of the tour was the Maximum versus R.E.D match from day 3 in Tokyo. I really enjoyed that. There are some other matches that came close, but for whatever reason, I just thought the chemistry of all the wrestlers, and the speed, the display of power, it was all there. There was a really good match. For my standout wrestlers, this was really difficult to pick because honestly, so much of the Dragon Gate roster is impressive. Like the Dragon Gate roster, they realize they can't just, I'd say at least the majority of them, hint, hint, Park, hint, hint. The majority of them realize they can't just, sit on their thumbs when they're on these house shows. They really have to impress the fans. So it's really difficult to pick just a few, but obviously the most obvious choice is KZ. You know, he's getting a very nice, interesting push here. It'll be very cool to see how he goes in 2019. I really liked how strong he looked on the show. And it wasn't just that he was booked strong, but he looked strong. You know, great uppercuts and elbows, really strong. My runner-up would have to be Yamato. In every match I saw him in, he was always really committed to his character. You know, he has great impact on all of his moves. You know, a great way he carries himself. You know, strong movement. I don't remember any issues, like even any moments of awkwardness. He's one of my favorites. And the other is UT. You know, just a solid all-round grappler. Really liking his technical work. Be exciting to see how he goes in future. And yeah, that's it. That brings me to the close of my 4th episode of Pure Grade Pro Res. Yeah, look forward to the future, guys. I'll catch you all later. Look forward to my next shit, okay? Bye. Later. Peace. Get out. Let's see you guys go, okay? Ciao.